Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. We're presented by CLNS Media. Today on the show, we've got good friend of the program, Dieter Kurtenbach, fresh off of smelling like a skunk coming out of the Oakland Raiders locker room to regale us with Western Conference over-undertakes in terms of win totals. How are you going, Dieter?
I was a lot better before the skunk, and I'm not sure which was worse, the Raiders' performance on Monday Night Football or the fact that the entire Coliseum, the lovely old decrepit building it is, covered in skunk stink. I had a skunk hit my house when I first moved in here about a year ago, and it just scarred me for life. Like, you had to wash everything. You had like a bottle spray of vinegar. Do not mess with skunks. That is my one takeaway here. Don't worry about overs or unders. Just make sure you live a skunk-free life.
I remember one time my aunt, one of her dogs got skunked, and it got all in the hair of the dog, and it took them like months to get it totally out of his hair.
It's incredible. So the Coliseum is obviously the Oakland A's baseball stadium as well as the Raiders stadium because, you know, Oakland. And a skunk got loose in the A's dugout, which like borders as a actual like.
Wait, this wasn't the Raiders' fault? This was the A's fault?
We're not sure. It's everyone's fault. Let's put it that way. It's the Coliseum authorities' fault. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if there was a whole animal kingdom living in like the vents of the Coliseum. But it goes off. It gets worse. Like apparently it was in Oracle Arena. It was in both of the locker rooms. It got up to the press box. We were on the field shooting a video. It was terrible. I figured, okay, well, it's just sort of this residual thing. I smell it, but there's no way it's like getting into my clothes. I get on the train, which I feel sorry for anyone who's on the train with me, though I guess we were all coming from the same spot. Come home, and the first thing my girlfriend says is, "You smell like skunk." So I don't know, and I got the hell out of there like early because I live close to the Coliseum. I don't know how anybody who actually stayed there and wrote for like 2-3 hours as you do after a game, I don't know how any of those people like didn't get just permanently damaged skunk clothes. It baffles me, but I survived, and I got some over-unders. I
will say this too. I don't really understand how people write after games like that in those big press rooms. It's not a skill set that I have, I will say, at least. Like, I can certainly write, like if I need to file something like at the buzzer or something, like I used to have to at CBS, like, sure, that's one thing. It's like kind of a different mindset. But if you're like doing a feature or something, if you're doing a column off of a game, I really struggle to do it like right whenever I'm sitting in front of like 55 people. It's like,
it's rough.
I'm gun shy, apparently. I'm like one of those people who can't pee in public.
Yeah, I've never had that latter problem, though. I mean, especially in some places, it's really cramped. I can recall in the NBA playoffs last year, of course, all those games are on a really tight deadline because I work for a newspaper. And it's like I'm sitting with, rubbing shoulders with two people, trying to get something out that's slightly coherent in a span of like, I got 15 minutes after the game ended. And if that game went up to the wire, like I'd like to contextualize the entire damn game. So it's a real challenge, but I kind of enjoy the thrill of it. The one place that I don't think I could pull off, and you know how big I am, 6'8", like 275 pounds. I'm not a small human. Apparently, and I've never done it, and I kind of want to try it, though I know it will go poorly. Cameron Indoor Stadium, the crowd is right on top of you. You are more than shoulder to shoulder. It's like a Spirit Airlines flight, and you got to write. And I can't write on airplanes because I'm too big. I have to go T-Rex arms, and I can barely type. I have no idea how anyone can file a story from Cameron Indoor Stadium, even if they're small. Just no idea.
Yeah, no, that's one. I think Fog Allen is like that too. Where you went to Missouri, you probably do you know that? Like, have you ever experienced that?
I never covered I went to basketball games at Kansas when they played Missouri back in the Big 12 days, but I never had to write under those circumstances because I covered football. So football is always easier, especially the NFL. Some of the college ones can be pretty tight. Certainly the Coliseum's really tight because it's this old decrepit building, but like the 49ers press box, which I'm in all the time, is huge. You can put your legs up. There's tables, most modern NFL stadiums, it's fairly easy to do. And if you do need to get some space, it's massive. You can go and be out of earshot from people and write. But NBA arenas, baseball press boxes, those are super tight. It's an interesting it's an interesting challenge. I kind of dig it, but I can totally see how some people aren't built for it. It certainly isn't conducive for good work, even if you do have a skill at sort of putting something out in those circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not conducive to doing good work as it is, but like
neither of us are. But here we are.
But like that just makes it worse.
I like having the handicap then, because at least I can blame that.
This whole entire evening is just going to be handicap as well, because I haven't podcasted in like
puns.
3 weeks because
there's so many handicap puns here.
Yeah,
what are we doing?
Just because I have been on vacation and I am going to be stumbling over words. I've done like a little bit of prep work on this in terms of pickups and losses and just kind of what they were last year, just like I did for the last podcast. But
that sound is everybody just immediately clicking X on their podcast app. Like, I don't know what the hell these guys are talking about. Skunks and tight parameters. And now Sam says he hasn't studied any of this shit.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a blast this time. This is going to be just outrageous in terms of the overall effect that this podcast has. Our sponsor today is Simple Contacts, so we'll give a quick shout out to them midway through this episode. We're going to run through 8 teams in this episode. We're going to run through 7 teams in the next episode. We're going to start with the Dallas Mavericks again. This is in alphabetical order. The Mavericks, their over-under is 34.5. Last year, they won 24 games. They were expected to win 33 games. I believe that was the biggest difference in terms of expected win-loss in the entire league, 9 games. That's one of the bigger ones I've seen since covering the NBA. Offensive rating of 24, defensive rating of 17. In terms of who they have gained, who they have lost, DeAndre Jordan, Luka Doncic are the 2 big names to know. Ryan Broekhoff is a pickup out of Australia who can really shoot it. Has had success in leagues around the world. I believe he went to Valparaiso, if I remember correctly, from like 2010 or 11. Jalen Brunson is another pickup to know. And then they traded Devin Harris away last year, and then they've now reacquired him via free agency. So they've sort of re-picked him up. They lost Yogi Ferrell and Doug McDermott as well. Yep. Those are the 2 big ones at the very least. They lost a couple of other lower-end players. They also have gained a couple of lower-end players. Ding is on this roster. Summer League sensation from 2016, Ding. Maybe it was 2017. What are your overall thoughts on the Mavericks as we kind of head into the Luka Doncic era?
Yeah, I obviously am a big fan of Doncic. And I think the DeAndre Jordan pickup, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Jordan's game, and I think it's fairly binary in some senses, I can see a lot of things to like about this squad overall. It all hinges on Dennis Smith Jr., a player that I know both you and I are big fans of. He was a second-team All-Rookie last year, but there's a lot of development that still needs to happen there. He was playing kind of wild last year, and I don't know necessarily what he's going to mold into. If he molds into a more professional player as opposed to this sort of young, unbridled Westbrookian type without that full range of game yet, but just this unbridled athleticism, bully ball kind of a mindset, if he can put a little more polish on that, if he makes a big jump from year 1 to year 2, I like a lot of the pieces on this team, and that 34.5 that they should go over. That's only a 1.5 game jump from their expected win-loss last year. I don't know what that is, and ultimately I do think there's going to be a difficulty in meshing a lot of this lineup because I don't know what they want from Doncic. We know that Harrison Barnes is still here, and he's a flexible dude, but they have to figure out how to play both him and Dirk and Wesley Matthews. And there's I don't know how these parts fit together just yet. I do think we'll have a pretty good idea come midway through the season, but that's enough time to really put a dent in an overall win total. And so I think I lean under on this, but it's going to be really tight, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from this total, but I agree with you that I think under is the play if you're going to go a direction here. I would imagine they're probably going to start something like Dennis Smith, Luka Doncic, Harrison Barnes, Dirk, and DeAndre. And then
that makes sense.
Late in games,
is that their closing lineup?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, you can see a situation where Wes Matthews is in closing lineups. Rick Carlisle really likes 2-point guard lineups. You could see situations where JJ Barea comes in and plays a bunch of minutes for them late in games. You can see situations where they're just happy with the playmaking they have with Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith. I mean, those are essentially 2-point guards out on the floor at once. Do you close with Dirk? Do you close with DeAndre? A lot of questions, I think, that still need to be borne out. In terms of long-term development, I love the idea of putting DeAndre Jordan with Dennis Smith and Luka Doncic. Luka is always a guy, as we've talked about on this podcast many times, who has played better with a point guard next to him. So having Dennis Smith there is a really good thing, not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. And I think that having a great pick-and-roll player like DeAndre Jordan is only going to help him reach his ceiling quicker, and it's going to help Dennis Smith reach his ceiling quicker as well. Where I'm a little bit worried is I'm just not entirely sure where the consistent shooting comes from outside of Dirk on this roster, because Doncic can shoot it, but he's also a guy who really likes to have the ball in his hands, and he'll take a lot of contested shots. They'll go in at a pretty high clip for a guy taking contested shots, but they're still contested shots. Harrison Barnes can shoot. Obviously, you can feel pretty good about getting 38% from three from Harrison Barnes. Dirk can shoot, but DeAndre is not really a shooter. Wes Matthews.
No, I think that's fair.
Wes Matthews has been hot and cold, I would say, over the course of the last few years.
But you're right. He's not reliable in terms of that shot. It's too mercurial. Yeah,
and I'm just not entirely sure where it all comes from for them. Now, they'll take threes. There's no question. They, like Rick Carlisle, they took the fourth most threes in the NBA last year, despite having guys that aren't necessarily amazing shooters. Like Wes Matthews is on the same level, I should say, as Harrison Barnes as a shooter. But again, these are guys that you don't necessarily want to count on to be your number one option there, especially if Dirk is only playing 24 minutes a game, 22 minutes a game, which I think is pretty realistic at this stage, right?
Yeah. My other thing, too, is I haven't seen Dennis Smith take that step outside the arc. I'm interested to see how he plays off the ball now that there's a more viable ball handler next to him for more minutes.
Really good shooter off the ball, not a great shooter on the ball. Dennis Smith.
Right. But and somewhat, is that the same for Doncic? You would know better than I, but it seems to me, just from what I've seen of Doncic's game, that he's kind of a slasher type, and that he likes to drive into the lane, sometimes stop, stuff like that, but not necessarily, a guy that you want to, especially if you have that 1-5 pick and roll going, which I imagine they're going to run time and time and time again when Jordan's on the court with Smith, because you have so much athleticism and so much ability to attack the rim with those two. I don't know if Doncic is a spot-up shooter in the same sense that, and Barnes certainly is an elite at that, and I don't think Matthews is elite at that. There's nobody else on this roster that even really qualifies, maybe except for the Australian guy you mentioned, who, you certainly want out there. I don't know if Doncic is even up on the Barnes level. So you just have Dirk, and it's Dirk. He's 40 years old. The legs are what they are, and at some point, that percentage probably won't be so high. I don't know if that's this year or not, but there are questions that you can see that at least they have a vision to a certain degree. But I think it's going to take a long time to figure out sort of the best iteration of this Mavericks team. Long term, I'd buy all the stock I can. I think Smith and Doncic is a really great situation. They have ownership that has shown that they'll be aggressive. Jordan is a great example of that. Rick Carlisle is one of the best coaches in the NBA. Questions about how it all fits together offensively, questions about this team defensively, even with DeAndre Jordan, because as much as there is intensity, the questions from 2 to 4 and what that lineup's going to look like, you can have some pretty bad defensive lineups in that group.
Yeah, I just don't know what to make of the defense, I guess, because this team somehow cobbled together like a league average defense last year.
Baffling.
When they had no business doing that. And you bring in DeAndre Jordan, who, I know what the numbers will say on DeAndre in terms of the effect that he's had on the Clippers defenses more years than not. The Clippers have been better without him on the floor defensively than with him on the floor. But
true.
I just don't buy that. a good defender. He's one of the most communicative defenders in the league. He is a good rim protector whenever he's in position, just because his body takes up so much space and he's such a vertical athlete.
For sure.
I don't know what to make of it.
That was way more of a Clippers problem than it was a DeAndre Jordan problem. Now, that's not to say Jordan doesn't have limitations and that you can't attack his immobility to a certain degree, but you can do that with even the best rim protector in the NBA, Rudy Gobert. That was more of a Doc Rivers doesn't really know what he's doing problem, in my opinion, than you should pin it on DeAndre. And I think Rick Carlisle absolutely knows what he's doing. So while there are limitations, I don't think DeAndre Jordan's going to do anything to hurt. I think he will augment the Mavs defense in a big way. Someone who won't is Dirk, though. Every time Dirk's on the court, he is just begging. He's a traffic cone out there on the defensive end. You can't hold it against him. He's never been very good, and now he's old. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. He's out there for shooting. But does that mean that you're going to get more Dirk at the 5 minutes and, have Harrison Barnes out there as a small 4? How does Rick Carlisle put that all together? That's the big thing, because if you're playing J.J. Barea alongside Dennis Smith, Doncic, Barnes, and Dirk, I mean, I don't know how you don't have a defensive rating of 115, 120.
Yeah. I would probably bet on them being a league average defense again. Where I'm questionable is the offense, I guess.
Okay.
I know that Luka is unbelievable, and I know that DeAndre obviously has an incredible effect gravity-wise, but This was the 24th best offense in the league last year, and they're relying a lot on a 19-year-old creating more offense in order to take that next leap. And okay, let's say they take a pretty big leap. A big leap is to league average, right? Like that would be like 3 points per 100 possessions. Mm-hmm. That's still like, a 108, 109 offensive rating versus a 109, 110 defensive rating.
Yeah.
I mean, the over-under, the number here is 34.5. I think it's basically right. I'm going to stay away from it. And if you made me guess, I'd probably go under and just kind of bet on everything taking a little bit of time to gel.
Like, this team is counting on two guys. It's counting on two guys who are 20 and 19, and a guy who's 40. And I think we know what Harrison Barnes is now. I think we know what DeAndre Jordan is. Everybody else on this team is a pretty well-established entity. The guys who aren't, to whatever degree, I guess Dirk is, but he's got an extra level for us at this juncture. But two guys don't even add up to Dirk's age. It all hinges on them. To say that we would know what the hell is going to happen in that situation would be disingenuous.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm a pretty big fan of Harrison Barnes. Like, I don't really hide that. I think for what he is, he's actually a very good NBA player.
I totally agree. And I love Harrison as a person, but it's for what he is. And he was drafted high. The number 7 overall pick. He comes to a Warriors team that he was part of that ascent. Yeah. But Harrison Barnes has always been kind of a early 2000s, mid 2000s NBA player. And they've tried, especially with the Warriors, and I see Carlisle doing it. They try to push him out of that sort of comfort zone. He's an ISO guy. He wants to be an ISO guy, and the Mavs have leaned on that since he's gotten there. The funny thing is,
he's actually pretty good at it.
I'm not disagreeing, but he's not prolific.
Right. Like, he's not someone who's like top 20 in the league on it, which is essentially what you have to be in order to be efficient doing it.
He's the best player on a bad team or a role player on a good team. And this team doesn't know what it is yet. And that identity creates a barrier, perhaps, that they're going to have to work through, because Barnes is either going to have to sacrifice or they're going to be limited by what he does. That is probably the biggest, that's the cog with the least grease on it as we enter this season. And it's not as if there aren't question marks up and down this roster. So at 30, I would play the under on this just because of all the question marks. Ultimately, though, it's one of those teams that even though I'd play the under, maybe it goes above. Optimistically, this team could. I thought last year they had an outside shot at the playoffs in terms of getting close to 500 and seeing what the hell happened. That could happen this year. It could click. Absolutely. They have the talent. But,
I think if it goes right, it just goes right with Luka, and he is the star that Dallas is hoping.
1,000%.
I think that's very possible. Like, I think he might average 16, 5, and 5 this year.
Totally.
If he does that, and Barnes averages 18, and Dennis Smith takes a leap in terms of efficiency, like, it
could work.
Yeah, there's a road to this working, and there's a road to them being over 500. Like,
for sure.
I'm just probably...
It's not the widest road.
Yeah, I'm just... Given that they play in the Western Conference, I'm probably just going to bet on it being a really tough schedule and a team has to lose games, and I think this team is probably a year away.
Agreed. They're going to be fun to watch, though. This is one of the teams that I will watch a lot just for the interest of what they can be, and I think that, again, if you could buy stock in teams for the future, do it now. Buy low. Yeah,
no question. The next team here is the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets were hard luck out on the playoffs last year, 46 wins. They were an expected wins of 45, so basically right on the number. Offensive rating 6th, defensive rating 25th. This is a team where we kind of know what it is. I mean, in terms of what they've picked up, it is Isaiah Thomas, it is Michael Porter. They've lost Emmanuel Mudiay and Devin Harris. They're like kind of split the time at backup point guard from the first half to the second half of the season after the trade. And then also Wilson Chandler, Darrell Arthur, and Kenneth Faried. Look, I mean, Wilson Chandler is an actual loss. He started 71 games for them last year. The other two, not so much. They were out of the rotation at this stage. You know, Darrell Arthur struggled with injuries. 47.5 is a fascinating number.
It is. It is. It's cruel. They won 46 games last year, so 47.5. I mean, it's fair. It's cruel. I'm going to take the over, and the main reason why is that they're going to get more than 38 games from Paul Millsap, presumably. Yeah. And I'm a big Paul Millsap fan, and that's my bet. I don't like the loss of Wilson Chandler. That said, if Michael Porter can play, that might provide something. It's not going to be Wilson Chandler necessarily, but that kid does have star power, and he did fall to them, and it's a risk, taking him at 14 with his back issues and just had surgery and all this stuff. But that's an X factor that could really pan out. Ultimately, it's Millsap, and the other one that I'm buying, Jamal Murray taking another jump. Last year, he was able to increase his effective field goal percentage by 40 points. I don't know if he'll do it by 40 points again, because if he does, then he puts himself into a borderline, top flight point guard status. But I like Jamal Murray. I like the sum of these parts. I think Mike Malone, while we can have a conversation about if he's the guy who's going to get them where they want to go, he's going to have a competent team on the court night in, night out. I can guarantee you that. I don't know if it'll ever be great, but it'll be competent. I think there's reasons to go over. I see more reasons to go over with the trajectory of some of the players on this team, and again, getting more than 38 games of Paul Millsap, who's one of my favorite players in the NBA, and just a guy who wins basketball games. So yeah, with Millsap, I mean, you're trusting a guy that turns 34 this year. That's fine. It's totally reasonable to do that, given his track record. You're trusting, though, a 34-year-old to turn around a defense that has to finish higher than 25th in all likelihood to top this number. And Jamal Murray, I think, battles defensively. He's probably a league average defender. Gary Harris fights defensively. He's probably a league average defender. Will Barton's not a great defender. No. Isaiah Thomas kind of has the body. Will Barton's a frustrating defender, because you look at him and you go, you could be competent. Like J.R. Smith can be competent at times. They essentially have the same bod.
Yep, no question. Trey Lyles, Isaiah Thomas, Mason Plumlee. These guys great. Aren't great defenders. And then the key here is Nikola Jokic. Like, where are we?
Yikes.
I mean, the big question here is whether or not the Nuggets can build a competent defense with him involved. I know that there are defensive analytics out there that will call him a league average defender. I mean, that's just not...
That's not true. Those analytics are lying.
It's not realistic. I mean...
We love analytics, but that's wrong.
Yeah, like it's worth exploring those numbers and discussing, why they are the way that they are. I mean,
whoever made that number, show yourself.
Well, the fact that they were 2 points better per 100 possessions with Jokic on the floor than with him off the floor. Like, that is a thing that exists.
It is.
Their number was still at 111 points per 100 possessions given up. And
no bueno.
that's just not good enough. I mean,
not for a
that's
playoff
still,
team, no.
Yeah, that's still placing you right around 25th in the league.
And this is a team that can score, but defense is consistent unless you're a top flight team, and scoring can be fleeting.
Yeah.
And that's not how you build it. I would like to say that I think Mike Malone has a chance to be the first coach fired this year.
It's plausible. I mean, if they get out slow, like I would understand why that would happen. I wouldn't bet, I would not bet on that.
No. I don't think
that's
like a weird dark horse thing. If you can get like a 1,500 number on that at the beginning of the season, worth the flyer.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad suggestion. I'm going to look to see if I have
different podcast.
I have to have that.
Have that sitting around.
Have to have it sitting around. I do not, unfortunately.
What do you think about Harris in general?
Big
kind of a divisive. I find him somewhat divisive.
Is he?
Well, what is he?
Do people go crazy about Gary Harris?
No. No one goes crazy about anything about the Denver Nuggets. That's the nature of the Denver Nuggets. But
are people out here wilding about Gary Harris?
No, but perhaps it's born from ambiguity. But I mean, how would you define Gary Harris? What would you call him? If I said, give me a scouting report real fast, what is he in the year 2018, 2019?
Is an absolutely monstrously efficient two-way guard who can knock down threes at a ridiculously high level. He's a consistent 40% three-point shooter. He is someone who can attack closeouts, pull up from 22 to 14 feet and get a relatively efficient shot. He's a really good cutter, which works really, really well with Nikola Jokic. You can play him against 1s through 3s defensively, which is valuable. He has the length. He has the fight in him to where he'll at least battle in those switch scenarios. And to me, I guess that where some of the divisiveness happens is with the contract extension. I think that is pretty darn close to a bargain. Almost.
Yeah, $16.5 million for next year. And given the scouting report you just gave, given the production that he's put up, I think it's a totally fair number when you look around the league and you see who else is making $16 million a year. Let me ask you this then. Would you rather, if you could only keep one, would you rather have Murray or Harris? I think that might be the divisive aspect of it. Yeah. But because it's the Nuggets, it's tricky.
I mean, right now, I think Gary Harris is better, but into the future, I think Murray will be better.
Next 3 years. You get him for 3 years.
I would probably take Jamal over the next 3 years, but that's not shit talking Gary. I think
absolutely.
Yeah, I think Gary Harris is going to be if Gary Harris was in the Eastern Conference, I should say, he would be a borderline all-star guy.
Oh, for sure. I agree with that. I find this backcourt very intriguing for kind of that reason. Yeah. Because there's three. I mean, again, we mentioned Will Barton isn't a very good defender at all, but
awesome offensive player though.
He good, and you put those three on the court together, and it's like, man, I really like them against damn near anybody in the NBA. I don't think that if you just put those names out there, that a casual, so obviously not this audience, but a casual fan, the ESPN basketball fan, if you will, would be able to tell you anything about the three of them. And that just kind of fascinates me.
Jamal might be a little bit different because he has the pedigree.
Because of the Kentucky thing. But I mean, Gary Harris went to Michigan State, and it wasn't as if he was some schlub there.
Gary Harris was a 5-star recruit, went to Michigan State, played 2 years. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, Jamal has the Kentucky pedigree. He has, he was top 6 or 7 recruit in that class. He's just kind of a little bit more well-known, I would say. Yeah. The thing here is that Jokic gets all of the credit for this offense. And look, he is certainly the driving force.
He's awesome on offense.
Yeah, he's certainly the driving force for the offense. But I don't think that we give enough credit to the backcourt when discussing that. Will Barton can really, really create plays. Gary Harris is one of the most efficient shooting guards in the NBA. Jamal Murray can shoot the ever-loving shit out of the ball, and he's improving as a pick-and-roll playmaker. These guys are really, really good offensively, and they're a perfect fit around what Jokic can do.
Does Isaiah Thomas have any role on this team, any serious role on this team, in your opinion? Because I have a hard time.
I think he would definitely play minutes. He's absolutely going to play. They don't have a backup point guard.
It's bad. Because, I mean, you can't have him on the court.
You can't have him with Jokic on the floor. And you can't have him with Plumlee on the floor either, which...
So you're playing Millsap at the 5? You can't do that for 20-something minutes a game.
No.
You can't do it.
You probably can't do it with Lyles at the 5 either.
Hernan-Gomez? I mean, is he good enough?
No, that's a bad idea.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for them defensively when Isaiah Thomas is on the floor. There's no question there. And I think that ultimately that's why not just Isaiah Thomas, like that's not the only reason here.
No, absolutely.
Just in general, the defense, I don't know where I see the defense taking a leap. Like, I don't know what the road to improvement for the defense is outside of Paul Millsap playing 40 more games, which, again, given that he's 34, that might be asking a lot. Like, say he only plays 25 more games.
Right.
I still think this is probably a bottom 6 defense in the NBA.
Okay.
And that makes me think the number is going to be pretty consistent with what it was last year, 45, 46, 47, as opposed to the 50-win number, which is where I think some people are predicting, and that's reasonable if you expect Jamal Murray to take this big leap. But, and I'm a big Jamal Murray guy. I think he might average 20 points a game this year. Right. In terms of team success, though, I'm just not sure where it all comes from in terms of defense.
I don't disagree, but at 47.5, considering the potential that's on this team, and that, yes, I agree. I don't think the defense is going to get any better, but if it gets a little bit better, now we got something cooking. If it does show market improvement and gets to 20th, if it can even get to league mean, holy crap. I mean, look out for this team.
Yeah, but what is the realistic road to them being a league average defense?
There isn't one. There is. You have Jokic really commit to being much, much better on the defensive end, and you get a marginal upgrade there. You get more games from Millsap. You get Will Barton to buy in because he has the tools. And you just have a lineup that's scrappy as shit. Now, some of these lineups, as we mentioned, it's going to be really difficult. They do not have a viable backup 5 who can play defense. That is a bad sign. They don't have a backup point guard that can play defense because it's Isaiah Thomas. But this team is going to be able... I think this team ultimately will be able to put up points with anybody. And so if they can...
Yeah, they have no insulation for Isaiah Thomas.
Right. But if they can, so I think they're going to get a little bit of a jump on the offensive side with Murray. And if they can parse together defensive improvement, whether that's from Millsap or anything I just mentioned, now we are near 50. I would not lock in 50, but I certainly wouldn't be shooting with this kind of offensive firepower. Being around 500 or even sub 500 seems very unrealistic to me. So it's probably a push number, all things considered, though it's a 0.5. But I think that there's more potential for the over than the under, especially considering some of the competition in that division. That's 4 games per opponent. That does matter. I know it's a good division and a tight division, but I see more regression in that division than improvement necessarily. Yeah,
like I think that if they get to 20th defensively, this number goes over. That to me, that's their ceiling. Is something like 20th defensively.
And I think there has to be something to be said if Porter can actually get on the court. I don't know if that's going to happen at all this season, much less what I could tell you it could possibly happen. But that kid can be a very good backup, not defensively at all. Another guy who, frankly, though he has the skill set, I don't think is going to be anywhere close to a good defender.
Certainly not as a rookie.
Not as a rookie, no. He might develop into a average defender at best, but that's not his game. But as a backup 4 and someone who can spread the court, give you a nice 4-out system, or I guess a 5, it was 4.5 out with Jokic.
Definitely 5 out. He can shoot the shit out of the ball now.
I know, but it's weird because he plays in the high key and he'll pop out and in, and so it's it's 4 or 5, whatever. But it's a really great floor spacing lineup. It's with Millsap, but even more so with Porter. And if he can get out there, I think that is worth a game, honestly.
Maybe.
So maybe
it could be
just because of the state of this bench. Honestly, I like Trey Lyles, but
yeah, like I think Mason Plumlee is like the 30th to 35th best center in the league, but he does the same stuff as Jokic, and it's in some regard it is good to have that continuity when he's on the floor when Jokic leaves, but you can't play them together. I mean, they tried that last year and that did not work.
It's a terrible idea, and that's that's another Mike Malone specialty there.
Yeah, and I like Torrey Craig a lot. I think Malik Beasley has ceiling. I think Juancho has some ceiling still.
For sure.
But I'm just not sure where exactly the significant improvement comes defensively. Like, we didn't talk about Torrey Craig in terms of the defense. Like, Torrey Craig can really defend. But it's
cool.
Just not enough. Yeah, he's playing like 16 minutes a night probably.
He is. He played 16 minutes last year. 39 games, 16 minutes.
So, yeah. I'm going to go under, but I think that I will stay away because I think the number is basically right. Golden
Fair
State,
enough.
the team that you cover more regularly than anyone else, you know, do the numbers matter? Like it
matters if you're betting it.
Numbers matter. But, I mean, like, they won 58 games last year. They had an expected win-loss of 56. Offensive rating 3rd, defensive rating 11th. Pickups here, DeMarcus Cousins, obviously, whenever he gets back on the floor. Jonas Jerebko, Jacob Evans, and I think Damian Lee will play a role at some point as well. Losses, Zaza Pachulia, Omri Caspi, David West, and JaVale McGee. Should note that at some point it seems like Patrick McCaw is going to take his qualifying offer here soon. So the number here is 62.5. I mean, I'll let you go because you cover them regularly, I guess, before I jump in.
Take the under.
That's my lean as well.
This is a better team than last year. It could be if obviously if DeMarcus Cousins plays, that is a significant upgrade to Zaza Pachulia. What will be going on in the early part of this season is the Warriors will be trying to see if they have a young center on this team. And that means that Damian Jones is probably the opening day starting center for the Golden State Warriors. I like Damian Jones. I think he has some potential to be a nice backup 5.
Why is Kevon not starting?
Offensive limitation. But it could also be Kevon Looney. It could also be
like
Jordan
Damian
Bell.
Jones is an entire limitation.
They like Jones's upside, and I think they want to give him more run because they know what Looney is. They were willing to let Looney go this past offseason. Yeah. If the market didn't just deliver him for $1.5 million, he would be gone. Now, he serves a very specific role on this team, and it is an extremely valuable role, which is he is a switch defender center. And we saw that time and time again in the playoffs when teams decided to isolate and then run high pick and roll. Kevon Looney can stay in front of
a lot of guards,
more meticulous guards. Let's put it that way. If you put any motion in front of him, it's kind of gone to hell. But he is a good defender. He is a good defender for a modern switchable scheme. It might be Jordan Bell, who is energy and has a little bit of Draymond impact to him. But
I mean, if I was them, that's who I would be starting. I would just say I would just give Jordan the spot and say go until DeMarcus comes back. But I understand why they won't
match
do that.
All of them. And this is Kerr doing the Keystone Center, not in a Keystone Cop way, but essentially the center will dictate what we are trying to do defensively. If it's Jordan Bell, we want to get up and down the court. If it is Damian Lee, it is we want to have a strong presence in the paint. Damian Jones. Damian Lee would be a terrible presence in the paint. He's only 6'6". But Damian Jones, we want to have a presence in the paint. I don't know if that is a good or a bad idea, but that is what they think of him. And if it's Kevon Looney, we want to be defensively stout but switchable. Okay, that's fine. It all depends on when DeMarcus comes back. Because when DeMarcus comes back, I don't think it's going to take very long at all, though there is a massive combustibility quotient on this team with everything, and now adding Boogie. But it seems like everyone's getting along. I haven't heard a negative peep from anybody. Once DeMarcus comes back, they are going to juggernaut for a little bit. It might take a game or two, but once they get going, look the hell out. And they're going to run off 10, 11 games in a row. But I think this is an eminently 500 team just because they don't give a shit until DeMarcus comes back. And that might not be.
Well, they're not 500. No,
they are going to hand a lot of games over on the basis of apathy.
But like them handing games over because of apathy is still getting out to like 25-17 or something.
That's fair. Okay, I might say a little bit lower because we are now compounding apathy, and they have a very clear date for when they have to turn it on. which only exacerbates sort of the mental malaise that we saw so much of last year, where they came significantly under. There were people talking about that team winning 74 games, which was preposterous and laughable at the moment, but here we are. These guys play bored, and they rest a lot of dudes. Yeah. They are playing it low and slow, and they will be one. And if they were waiting for the playoffs last year, holy shit, are they going to be waiting for it this year? The Boogie thing,
well, the paradigm. And like the other thing is too, I feel like they're going to be waiting for Boogie to come back this year,
1,000%,
because they know that their team will be entirely different with him back.
Yeah, they don't get it. They are everything up until Boogie getting there is preseason, and they're just not going to care because they are good enough to get away with it. They will ultimately win their division, but they are not going to put in a good, honest effort, a full effort, I don't think, until maybe Christmas when they play LeBron. Maybe.
Yeah, like there will be games that they get up for, but in terms of consistency, there's just no reason for this team to continue on at a crazy pace.
They're going to punt every game against the Kings and the Suns. There's just no value in those games for them. They're going to hand over 10 games this year just because they don't care. That's 10 losses that they shouldn't happen. They're going to happen. Now, again, the Cousins thing might come and they might not lose again. I mean, I don't know when Boogie comes. If he comes in March, they're going to turn it the hell on. But they're going to be gearing up for that moment the entire year. And the longer it goes, the fewer wins there's going to be. I mean, that is an obvious statement, but here we are. I would just play the 62 and a half is obviously totally gettable. I mean, any number. Yeah. You can throw any number at me, and it's totally gettable. If you said 74, I mean, if the Warriors put their minds to it, and they wanted to, for no good reason, by the way, because they are completely scarred from winning 73. But if they wanted to win 74, and that was the only thing they cared about, they could do it.
Yep.
Because they can win every single game they play if that was something that they cared about. I mean, they might not because of luck and stuff and injury and all that, but
the resounding likelihood is they would not win 82 games in a row.
No, but wouldn't it be fun? And this team, in theory, could give it a shot. It wouldn't last, but they could give it a shot. That is not what's happening here. Their goal is to get to like 55 wins.
Yeah.
Maybe. They don't give a shit about the 1 seed. They don't even like home court advantage. They don't, because if they don't have home court advantage, they have to try a little bit harder in the playoffs. The Warriors loved playing Game 7 on the road. It took until the second half of Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals for them to finally decide, we should care. I mean, this is a team that has sandbagged harder than any team I can remember in the history of the NBA, and they're going to take it to another level this year. Both in sandbagging and when Cousins shows up, if he does fit in, as I think he can fit in, they're going to take this whole juggernaut thing to another level.
So here's yeah, I agree. I'm going to go under here as well. It's funny that we're on 3 unders, and we're all, I think, very high on the Western Conference in general.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City, Utah, Denver to start the season. Do they start the season 0-3?
No, because I don't know if Westbrook's going to be there for Game 1, and there's going to be some energy. Here's the thing: Jordan Bell is actually a pretty good option for them at center. If they match Jordan Bell's energy when he's on the court, I mean, they're really fun.
They could play a warm body at center. They could play you at center.
I know. I've offered my services. I thought that would be a really good first person narrative story, and Steve Curtis keeps laughing at me.
Yeah, and just like beat teams. Like they would beat teams with you.
They started Zaza Pachulia.
Yeah,
they started him. He did not play in the playoffs, and he was their starting center. They got something significant out of JaVale McGee in the playoffs. David West was their best center last year. That is going to be a loss for them. But you look at the bench, I agree with you that Damian Lee is going to have a role on this team. He's on a 2-way contract. I think the rookie Jacob Evans out of Cincinnati has a chance to see major minutes. Patrick McCaw has something to prove this year. We'll see if he can do it or not, but he's going to get the opportunity. Quinn Cook was pretty damn good last year. He's on a full-term contract this year. Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, if, the twice a month they decide to play hard in the regular season, pretty damn good players. I guess it's interesting because the centers could elevate this team. Steve Kerr has wanted to mix things up, make things a little bit more unfamiliar, and he thinks that might spark a little bit of something. I don't think that that's going to happen, but it does have the possibility, as opposed to last year when they just sort of ran back the same team, and they were just totally disinterested in the regular season, save for a minor perk up for a couple of games. And
I'm going to say 60 wins, which would still be under. I am going to say they do get the 1 seed with those 60 wins. And they win the title. Like, who were...
I have them winning the title, that's for sure. And like, listen...
But for the purposes of this, under.
Let's have this conversation real fast here before we move on. It could blow up this year. Just telling you that right now. Malaise does not do well. There's kind of a slow crock-potting going on with this thing. And
but you know what the thing is, though?
Yeah.
Both Clay and Dre and Kevin are all playing for max money.
Right. But they've already earned max. Maybe not Draymond necessarily, but like Clay and Kevin can name his... Kevin could not play all year, have to sit out the next year and still get a max contract.
Yeah, that's true.
Draymond, for this Warriors team, they'll play hardball, but like Steve Kerr's not letting Draymond Green leave. He's not letting it happen unless Draymond Green punches Steve Kerr across the jaw, and in which case Steve Kerr will probably apologize and then beg him not to leave.
Well, the thing is, though, the thing with Draymond is, though,
as much money as possible.
Like, if he was to have like a really shitty year this year,
very feasible. He was so injured last year, and it wasn't reported, but he was a walking ice bag every minute that he wasn't on the court, and there were very good rumblings happening around that team that if Draymond didn't have a big playoffs, they might shake, because they were always going to shake shit up this offseason. They did a great job. But if he didn't have a good playoffs, that they might ship him out and try for somebody else in that spot and set themselves up perhaps to go out and land a max free agent in the next offseason when they are set to move into their new arena. They have decided, I think prudently, to run it back. Now, they have to open up this arena. I think all the tickets are already sold, so I don't know where those considerations lie. If they are still hell-bent on bringing everybody back, but they get 1 year of Boogie, and they still have, 1 year of Clay left, and Durant is on a 1 year deal. They got to figure those guys out, and ultimately, this team not winning with the amount of personality and the amount of drive it has, this team holding back, this team playing it low and slow, there's the potential, and now you add in DeMarcus Cousins, who has never played in a playoff game, and that has something to do with him. Add that in, there is a combustibility here that cannot be ignored. And it might not show up necessarily in the win-loss in the regular season, because they're going to do plenty to sabotage this 62.5 number themselves by just not caring. But come playoff time, when the tensions get high, this is a team that pushed it to the absolute last feasible second, the second half of Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, to give a shit. That is the cut and dry of it. You could say, they played well before that. They did not give a shit. They did not feel mortality until that exact moment, and they pushed it. I don't know if they'll get to that exact moment again, but if it happens early in the playoffs, I cannot guarantee that they're going to push through it and come out successful, just given the amount of personality on this team and the combustibility of it all.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, there is a very real chance that this is like the last year of this foursome.
Yes. And if it ends, it does not end gracefully.
Probably not. No, I can see a world where it does. Like,
it could.
Kevin Durant just decides to go to Los Angeles and be like, "Hey, I'm going to go and play with LeBron. I want to live in Los Angeles." Like,
if that happens, something big happened before it. Mainly, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant could no longer coexist. I'm telling you right now, being around this team, if it ends, and it very well could end at the end of this year, it is 99% likely that it did not happen in a positive way. That everyone just said their goodbyes and said, what a great run.
Yeah.
Something terrible happens. There's a 1% chance that Klay Thompson decides, I want to play for the Lakers, in which case then things start falling apart. But these guys know that they have the ability to go down as the best team since the Russell Celtics. Yeah. They know that they have that opportunity if they stay together. Now, I don't know how long that would last, or if they can come even close to it, whatever. But they know they have the opportunity. And they are all kind of in cahoots with this. And I think that they're there. So if it falls apart, it's because the cahoots is no longer the case, and that's the two people you got to keep an eye on are Durant and Green, because I'll just be blunt, didn't always see eye to eye.
You know what can help you see eye to eye, though, Dieter? Simple Contacts.
Yes!
Simple Contacts.
I laid it down and you picked it up. Baby.
Is the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of contacts from anywhere in minutes. It is vision care for the 21st century. If you need to renew your prescription, you just take a 5-minute Simple Contacts vision test online. It'll be reviewed by a licensed doctor. You receive a renewed prescription and reorder your contacts. All you need is your current contacts, an internet connection, and 10 feet of space. Even if you're totally out of contacts, they have an option for you. And if you have an unexpired RX, just upload a photo or your doctor's information and you can order your lenses. It's convenient, fast, reliable. It offers choice. It is an absolute 5-star experience. And you know what? It's summer, and there are no shortage of reasons that you have to have contacts on hand. Beach days, vacations, outdoor activities, weddings. I just took my Simple Contacts on the road to Australia. It was so easy. I can't emphasize enough how much I endorse this product. If you want to get Simple Contacts, you can get a $20 vision test. And if you compare that with an appointment, which without insurance would cost you up to $200, the contacts lens prices are absolutely unbeatable. Standard shipping is free. And best of all, we're offering a promotion to you guys, the listeners. $20 vision test if you use Game Theory as the promo code whenever you check out. That's GAMETHEORY. Get $20 off of your first order of contacts at simplecontacts.com/Game Theory, or enter that code Game Theory at checkout. Make sure to include all of the necessary documents that you need, all of the necessary prescriptions that you have already in this app, and it will just be so easy. Look, this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam, but it is absolutely just such an awesome way to order contacts, which can be so hasslesome. Is that a word?
No. It could be a hassle.
It can be burdensome. I like hasslesome.
Absolutely.
Let's go with hasslesome.
I like Hasselhoff better.
Hasselhoff. It can be very Hasselhoff to order contacts on whenever you're doing it in person. Go to simplecontacts.com/Game Theory, and you'll get that $20 off with Game Theory at checkout. Oh man, that was
that was there. That was. Let me put it this way: no one should have to worry about the quality of that read because of the quality of the endorsement.
Yes, that is true. I'm a big fan of Simple Contacts in general. Like I said, I am coming back from vacation, man. This is this is a troublesome evening in my life.
You're extremely Hasselhoff right now.
I am extremely Hasselhoff. Let's move on. The Houston Rockets.
What do you see about the Houston Rockets? Puns.
56. Just puns. That is it.
The Pun Theory podcast.
They won 65 games last year. Best offense in the NBA at a 114.7 offensive rating. 6th best defense in the NBA. Expected win-loss of 61 last year. Obviously had kind of a strange offseason. They lose Trevor Ariza. They also lost Ryan Anderson as well. Some of the lower-end guys on their bench. I mean, Joe Johnson, Brandon Wright, Tariq Black, Shinanu Onuaku.
You forgot Luke Richard Bahamute.
Luke Richard and Bahamute, I actually have him down here. Luke is actually a very key loss.
Yeah, he is not a smaller end guy.
Yeah, so
kind of a big one.
3 legit rotation wings though, or combo 3-4s that they lose,
and two serious playoff wings.
Yes, so they bring in Melo, Marquise Chris, Brandon Knight, Michael Carter Williams, James Ennis.
Yes, they did.
Bruno Caboclo and Gary Clark. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my general thought. I'm going to take the over, but I don't feel great about it.
I'm staying away from this. Like, again, 100% staying away.
This team, to me, seems like it can be an elite regular season team. I think that they took a real dent in their playoff possibilities with the loss of Ariza and Ba Mute. Not having Ba Mute in the Western Conference Finals was a serious factor. Just because they were
a healthy one, at least.
Right, but he couldn't do anything out there. He was a body. It was really painful. And as someone, that's one of the guys that I respect most in this league. It was really painful for me to watch. Like, he deserved better. But when you have the offensive firepower that this team has, I don't know what the hell Melo is. But if we're just going to talk about like Ryan Anderson or Melo, I think there's kind of an obvious answer there. I mean, neither of them are going to play much defense, but Melo, if he turns into Olympic Melo, as we've always wanted him to be, and I think this environment is more conducive for said transformation, he can score with the best of them.
Because Chris Paul is there. Like, that is the only reason it is more conducive to that transformation.
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, you're going to... Russell Westbrook is a dribble drive point guard. I mean, he is incredible at that. I don't know if he's much of a dribble drive and dish point guard. There's certain machinations to the offenses that I think that, I would. It's funny that Mike D'Antoni and Carmelo Anthony are back together again, but I would trust Mike D'Antoni to have Carmelo in the right spot. I don't know if he can get him in the right mindset, but I think he can get him in the right spot.
The weird thing about the fit to me with Melo is we all talk about Olympic Melo, and the best way to kind of get Olympic Melo going is giving him a ton of spot up looks and telling him, don't fucking dribble the ball. Don't take these 2 dribble pull ups. Just catch and shoot it. You're a fucking unbelievable catch and shoot player. Just do it.
Just do that. And they tried to do that last year in Oklahoma City, and it did not work out.
Right. But here's the thing with Houston's offense. Houston's offense was one of the most ISO-heavy offenses in the NBA. Like, they rely on getting these mismatches and taking advantage with these, like, 2 dribble pull-ups sometimes.
And they're going to give Carmelo those opportunities.
I think they
nothing
are.
Else but deference, which, fine, they're wasted possession. This is perhaps the only team in the NBA outside of the Golden State Warriors that can throw away offensive possessions.
I don't know that they can. Because the defense is not going to be as good as it was last year.
I can't make any statements about the Houston Rockets defense because I thought they were going to be a bottom 5 defense in the NBA last year, and they were the 6th best defense in the NBA last year. So I'm out. I'm out in that prediction game.
You lose Trevor and you lose Luke. Like that is huge. A significant downgrade.
And that's playoff quality. I mean, that's the inability to affect the game defensively on the wing because Chris Paul.
Right. So now you're talking about to get a competent defensive lineup on the floor, you basically have to play Tucker and Capella together now.
Yes.
I don't even know that they can play just one of them and keep defensive competence together because, like, what is the lineup?
If they develop Chris, if they can turn Chris into something, maybe he has the athleticism.
That's asking a lot.
I know it's asking a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there is a realm of possibility here.
Like their best defensive lineup
Tucker might die. He's going to have to play so much on this team.
Yeah, like their best defensive lineup now is Chris Paul, James, like realistic with Harden and Paul on the floor together.
Right.
Chris Paul, James Harden, James Ennis, PJ Tucker, and Clint Capella. And like, look, Chris Paul and James Harden together is unbelievable offensively, but like that offense, like that combination of players probably is not as good offensively as what they need to be.
But this is also a team that can maintain steady offense because they have Eric Gordon on the bench. Brandon Knight is now on this bench. They have Gerald Green on the bench who, for nothing else, can knock down some threes.
Yeah, Gerald Green is better than Brandon Knight, so like I'm there for that.
And here's the thing: Gerald Green wasn't appallingly bad on defense.
No, he was good. Playoffs. He was fine.
He was pretty good. He might be part of that best defensive lineup. But when you have two players of MVP caliber, which I don't know if Chris Paul is still there because of all the injuries, but maybe he is, with Harden and Paul, Capella is very, very good. I don't know if there's any more to Clint Capella than we saw last year. which doesn't make him a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He's a very good player.
It still
He's
makes
worth every penny he got.
Yeah, an incredible bargain at $590.
Totally. At the same time, I think there is an expectation that he is going to make another leap. And this is his game. It is damn good. Accept it.
Yeah, I mean, like DeAndre Jordan was basically this at Clint's age.
Yeah.
Like by year 5, DeAndre got better defensively. He learned to become more communicative under Doc Rivers. He started to figure some things out. But like in terms of his offensive game, he was what he was. And Clint's already there defensively.
Yeah, Clint's not going to just develop a pick and pop game. Like that's just not happening. He will be an incredible rim runner, and he will command respect on the defensive end. And he allows this team, and this is a thing that frankly needs to be brought up. I don't see a lot of this team getting up and down. I mean, there are certain lineups that it's more plausible, but let's just say we have the Paul Harden, Carmelo, Tucker Capella. I don't know if this team is going to push pace very much. And I thought that's when they were at their best last year. Obviously, Ariza and Bahamute, and those guys aren't necessarily speedy players, but they had a bit more dynamicism to them with those guys out there. Whereas this team, I kind of know exactly what they are, and they're a very half-court oriented squad. Whereas I like Capella as somewhat of an energy guy. I don't know if he can impact his own team as much as perhaps he'll be able to impact the other team when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like regular season Rockets versus playoff Rockets is just so very different. They played very different styles of basketball. Like last year in the playoffs, they really slowed it down.
Oh, it was painful. It was painful.
Yeah, and that was an option.
It was the ultimate. It was the ultimate level of pragmatism, and I guess credit to Mike D'Antoni for doing it. I always enjoy a good pragmatist, but this team argues, and maybe this is just a homer take, but this team argues that they and they factually were very close to that they were one Chris Paul injury away from going to the finals.
Yeah, they would have gone to the finals if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, and I would also like to add that the Golden State Warriors firmly believe that they would have taken the Rockets down in 5 games had Andre Iguodala not gotten hurt.
Sure.
One of those things, both of those things can be true, and both of those things can be false. That series wasn't necessarily as close as just going to, being that, having the Rockets having a 12-point lead or whatever at halftime of Game 7 leads you to believe. There was a lot of these teams trying to figure themselves out because of injury. It never got into this great battle. It was almost like both teams fighting to stay up, as opposed to this, blow for blow, iron chin boxing match.
Yeah, that's very true, I think.
And ultimately, I think the Rockets took a major step back, as I've said a bunch of times. I think Chris Paul deserves plenty of blame for that by not being pragmatist with his contract. I know that's not a very pro-player statement.
No, we're not going to do that.
Okay, fine, we're not. But I'm well on the record with that. But
Chris Paul, get your money, man. No.
Yeah, Chris Paul has plenty. We're not getting into it. We're not getting into it. But I agree that everyone should get as much as they want. You don't have to want it all. There's levels to this, and it's a very nuanced argument, and it probably it doesn't endear me to many. But nevertheless, this is a team that won 65 games last year, and yes, they took a step back. And I think that they are going to have problems in the playoffs. Though I will withhold final judgment until I see what the hell they look like in the regular season, because there's a lot of moving parts compared to last year. But 56 is a very low number for a team that, again, won 65 last year and only had 58 games of Chris Paul. Had 7, lost 10 games of James Harden.
Yep.
There is the potential that, they had 69 games of Eric Gordon. Maybe they do more sandbagging. Maybe they take a page out of the Warriors book. Maybe they look at what happened to Chris Paul.
I don't know that they can.
I don't know that they can either, but I do think that this team is red ass enough that they're going to go hard in the regular season, and that it's fun for them to play in the regular season. And that is something. There's something to be said for that. 56 is a very low number. I don't see 9 more losses compared to last year. I don't think they're getting to 65 again, but I think 60 is a very feasible number for this team, even with some of the other teams that I like in this conference that they're going to end up playing a lot. 60 is a good number, and I think they get the 1 seed again. I think that they value home court advantage because they believe that they were that close. And if they had Chris Paul with that home court, that would matter to them. I think they're going for that home court advantage. I think they get it with 60 wins. I'd lock it in over.
I think I would lean over. I think that they're probably going to win like 58 or so. I mean, again, like this, their expected win-loss was 61.
Yeah.
We think they got slightly worse. Let's say 59-60, something like that, 58.
It's still a pretty nice margin from the number as is.
It is, and I think I would go over, but there's just a lot of variance with this team because we don't know what they're going to look like defensively yet, so I'm probably going to stay away, even though I am relatively bullish on the number, like in terms of like what I think they end up with.
Let me ask you this about you. You seem rather down, obviously because of the defensive aspect, but it seems as if there's a presumption of that they're going to be a pretty bad defense, all things considered. And
I think that they're going to be.
Where do you think this ends up?
They finished like 6th last year. I think they finished like 11th this year.
Okay.
Like it's, I think it's a
did
small.
They still have a near? I mean, you could argue that this was one of the greatest offenses in NBA history last year in the regular season.
Like
I mean, are they still at that level?
114 plus offensive rating again. I think. Yeah.
I mean, is that number 1 in the NBA?
114 plus would be very close. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
it'll be between them and Golden State for the best offense in the league.
Right. So
because like LeBron's probably not going to have it next year.
No.
Toronto, you can make a case for Toronto.
You can make a case for a couple of teams. Don't get me wrong, but I think the easiest one to make a case for is the Rockets. If nothing else, they might just have to outscore teams.
Yeah, I would bet on the Rockets being the best offense.
So I mean, Rockets having the best offense and damn close to a top 10 defense. I don't, I like that formula.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, I'm saying that they're going to win like 58 games. You know what I mean? Like,
I just feel like this is. I feel like this is an easy over. Now, of course, with anything, it could go under, it could go the other way. But I just feel like 56 is an extremely low number, and I'm not really sure. Even though I can, I guess, point to the reasons why there's pessimism for this team. I don't know if there should be this much pessimism for this team. I mean, there's a 6.5 game difference between them and the Warriors on this chart. It's like, what? Did we miss all of last year? Did we forget what the hell happened?
Yeah, I mean, like. You and I both took under for the Warriors, and we would both take over for the Rockets. We're both like on that page and saying, yeah, we think that one team is better than what their number is, and the other team is just not going to give a shit in the regular season.
I just think this line is 2 games too low. Just straight up.
I think that I was surprised that it wasn't like 57.5.
People are really down on Melo, man. This is the time for a renaissance.
And you know what? Like, I'm kind of down on him too in terms of defensive impact. Like, I'm relatively down on him.
Baby, I've been down there for a long time, but at a certain point, it's kind of like these guys who are underrated for so long they eventually become overrated. Maybe the other way goes around. I mean, maybe he's been overrated for so long, and now that he's kind of underrated.
Maybe. I mean, the big thing is defense. Ariza held a lot together on the wing of that team defensively.
So much. And then they had a more than competent backup in Ba Mute.
Right, like
so they always had with Capella, they always had a really good defensive wing on the court. Sometimes they had 2 with a great center. Yeah,
like if you're gonna play a heavy switch scheme again, you can't really do that if you're gonna play any lineup with Melo other than PJ Tucker and Clint Capella on the floor.
Yeah. With James Harden, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, Harden was better defensively last year. But, like...
Harden's a woeful team defender, though.
He was fine last year, I thought. But the thing...
He's susceptible. Let's leave it at that.
The thing is, though, that because he's 6'5" with long arms and has that thick chest, that when they switch with him, teams often can't, like, murder him on switches. Agreed on that. Like, he is not as bad as, he's not Isaiah Thomas bad by any, like, it's not even close. Teams can murder Melo on switches.
Melo just doesn't. Melo hasn't given a shit on defense for the last 20 years, and he's not going to start now.
Yeah, no question. And he doesn't have the skill set to do it now either. So
no.
It's, they're going to have to do something with their defensive scheme, and that's why I'm saying stay away, even though I would probably bet on it being over if you made me pick. Just because I think they're going to have to totally change what they do.
I do like Garrett Clark on this team. I think Garrett Clark gives them a little something.
Maybe. He might.
He was one of the guys that the Warriors were very interested in. He is all of
the heavy analytics teams really, really liked him in the draft.
Yeah.
Penny also really liked him.
Garrett Clark eliciting a response there. All right, that's enough of this ridiculous basketball team.
Okay. The Los Angeles Clippers, the number is 37.
Okay.
Last year, 42-40. Offensive rating 8th, defensive rating 20th. Mm-hmm. Expected win-loss 41-41. But it was really kind of like the tale of two seasons. You know what I mean? Because obviously when you trade Blake Griffin, things are going to be very, very different. The weird thing is, though, that there never was really like a big difference in terms of what their results were.
Right.
They were within like 3 games of same. Yeah, like they were within 2 games of 500 for every day in the 2018 calendar year.
Yeah.
No. They went on like a little winning streak. I'm sorry.
They were either the best bad team in the NBA last year or the worst decent team.
Yeah, like they went on a win streak to get to 37-30 and then went on like a big losing streak at the end of the year. But like, I mean, so let's talk about what they've gained and what they've lost, I guess, because that is pretty essential to discussing this team. First and foremost, they have like 18 guaranteed contracts right now. So,
yeah, it's fucking mad. And some of these that they're going to have to cut are not cheap.
So they traded Marcin Gortat they traded Austin Rivers for Marcin Gortat. They signed Luc Richard and Mbah-a-Moute. Mm-hmm. They bring in Mike Scott. They draft Jerome Robinson and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they're like high on both of those guys.
As they should be. I like both of those players.
Yeah, I like Shai more than I like Jerome. But
but I get it.
Yeah, they do really, really like Jerome, and I would expect him to play minutes this year. Obviously, Patrick Beverley did not play a ton of minutes last year, so they're going to get him for full minutes.
11 games of Patrick Beverley last year.
So they're going to lose 33 games of Blake Griffin. They lose 77 games of DeAndre Jordan.
Right.
I think that's basically it in terms of like the big names here.
And 61 games of Austin Rivers.
Right. Yeah. I thought did I mention that?
No.
The Gortat deal?
Yeah. He gone.
Yeah.
He's a
wizard
now.
He is gone, and he was. You know what? We give Austin Rivers a lot of shit, and a lot of it is deserved. Austin Rivers averaged 15 points a game last year, shot 38% from 3, had 4 assists a game, and he at least can scrap a little bit defensively. Like he's a good backup player.
He is definitively a replacement player. Like if that's a guy on you, there are much worse, there are much better. He is the one who's right in the middle. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Sure. I'm comfortable with Austin Rivers on my basketball team.
Right.
Losing the star power hurts. Like losing DeAndre and losing Blake Griffin hurts a lot. This team is going to be deeper than just about every team that you'll come across. Montrezl Harrell last year I thought had one of the most underrated seasons in the entire NBA.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, like 11 points a game in 17 minutes a night. Still not a great rebounder or anything like that, but he's so efficient, such a good scorer around the basket. I think he's going to eat up a lot of those pick and roll possessions at a reasonable rate. Marcin Gortat also going to eat up a lot of pick and roll possessions, has that experience with John Wall. Shai Alexander and Jerome Robinson, having both of those guys are going to play like a pseudo point guard, combo guard role probably. Having those guys, having Gortat and having Montrezl Harrell around, it's going to help them develop. I think I lean under 37, though.
I have 37. I thought was kind of unfair. It's right on the money, frankly, but I have a slight over. I like this team's defense. There's something about it that, even though there's clearly like Milos and Danilo, but I'm a big Tobias Harris fan. Bradley and Beverly, that's as pesky of a backcourt as you could ask for, though I don't necessarily think I want them on the court at the same time, just given their length susceptibility or whatnot. and Lou Williams is no good as a defender. But man, like Montrezl Harrell, Luc Mbah a Moute, they got some guys on this team with Harris. I kind of dig it. I don't trust Doc at all. I'm well on the record with that. Lineups can get really strange here. I don't trust necessarily that guys are going to be put in the right spot, that lineups are going to be optimized in any way.
Yeah, Doc's done some funky stuff with lineups over the years, and this is like a roster that is tailor-made to like stagger certain lineups with certain minutes and certain players with other certain players, and I'm really not sure that we've seen enough from Doc over the years to...
No, I would venture to say that we haven't. But just the notion that this team, the longest tenured player on this team is Wesley Johnson. He's been on this team since July, since 2015. Everybody else was either acquired free agency or trade pretty much since last offseason. They have completely revamped this roster over the course of more or less a year.
Yeah,
and it's pretty incredible to look at. I mean, ultimately, because I think this number is spot on, and I have no goddamn idea what this team ultimately will be, though I see about 10,000 different routes for what it could be. It's get the hell away from it and don't even think twice. They're certainly intriguing, though, no? I mean, you got a coach that you don't trust to put guys in the right spot, given more or less like 15 players that he can mix and match into any lineup he wants as a starter, as the second unit, as a third energy unit. Like, there's no differentiation. This is sort of a egalitarian exercise in some senses. It's a very communist basketball team is what I'm trying to say.
I'm very interested in Putin Doc.
It's not inaccurate.
Vladimir Rivers or Doc Putin? Which one are we?
It's more of a Stalin-esque or Lenin-esque, but we can adapt it for the times. I don't see an oligarchy developing here at all, but that would be more of the other teams. But it is
funny because their front office is kind of an oligarchy.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. They're never going to get really raked for being a totally incompetent organization, even though they have money and Ballmer and all that stuff, because it's so much better than it was.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's good. Like, this is still an incompetent organization, in my opinion.
I'm still figuring it out. I don't know that we have enough of an indication yet.
The fact that Doc is still in charge, I think, lends itself to a certain degree of asshattery.
Yeah, you just really hate Doc.
I don't hate him, actually. I think he's a great guy personally. I don't get it. I have not seen. I have no point of reference to why he is in charge of an NBA team. Specifically this one.
That's a good question. Why is Doc still the coach of this team?
Yes, he won a championship with an incredible roster and one hell of a bench in terms of assistant coaches. That honestly made this guy look really fucking good.
Well, honestly, I don't mean it from, he's this unbelievable coach, or he's this really bad coach. I just don't know why he's still the coach of this specific group of players. They've totally turned the roster over. This is not who he agreed to coach.
Right.
Typically in these situations, there ends up being something of a, to quote Australian politics, which after watching the news for 2 weeks there, I have this in my brain, a spill. There's typically some sort of spill in terms of the way that these things get run, and I just don't know. I don't know why he is still there.
I don't get it, but let me put it to you this way. If Doc were to have left this offseason, and let's just say any team in the NBA, he has a spillover, and clearly he's got some sort of black magic happening, or just magic. Sorry, that was a terrible pun. But who the hell would he be a good coach of? If you could put Doc Rivers on any team and put him in charge, who would you say, oh, Doc Rivers could help this team, or Doc Rivers could really, keep that thing going in a good, positive way? There's not a single team in the NBA that I'd go, oh, I'd want Doc Rivers in charge of that one.
I would be interested putting him in Portland if they really want to make a change. I think I would rather have Terry Stotts, but
let me ask you this: why? What is the rationale? What does he click? What does he? what part of the formula does he fill?
The idea there, I think, would be communication defensively, and you could bring in like a center, like a DeAndre next summer, or try and bring in a DeAndre or something like that next summer, after you stretch out all of these contracts that were given out the year before. And like,
I just don't get it. I mean, this is a guy who never was able to listen. Maybe it was an unattainable end goal. Or maybe my expectation, he was never able to figure out Blake Griffin, I would argue. I think he probably caused more harm than good in Blake Griffin's career, and now Blake Griffin doesn't know what the hell he is, and probably the game has passed his skill set by to a certain degree because of the lack of...
It's very strange that that's the case. It certainly passed him by defensively, but you would think that all of his skills offensively would be more valuable than they've ever been.
This motherfucker should just be an elite small ball center on the offensive end, and I just don't see it. And again, that might
part of it's roster construction too, though, like having
1000%.
DeAndre Jordan and having Andre Drummond. Like, it's just not conducive.
But whose fault was that?
Yeah,
and like this guy wasted Chris Paul's prime. Again, the players have to take a massive amount of responsibility, but this guy was handed one of the greatest point guards of all time and didn't do squat with him. And I don't want to hold that necessarily against him at all times. But
the big thing there is the 2015 year. Like,
I know.
Like, losing that series to the Rockets was the killer. Like, there's no reason how
is he still in charge with this team? Did they just figure, we can't get a better coach than him, we don't want to pay these guys twice? Like, I don't know why you would give him all of these taupe basketball players and just decide, okay, he'll be able to make a pattern out of it, an interesting pattern. Like, it should blow up.
What I will say is that players love him.
That's nice. That's honestly nice. I think that's what he's got going for him. Yeah. That he's an incredibly affable guy. Even I like him as a person. But like, Jesus Christ, what is the allure as a basketball? Apparently, all you have to do is win one title, and you get a free pass for like a decade.
That's definitely true. Like that.
I didn't know that the limit was a decade. I guess we're finding out what the limit is every day he's still in charge.
Well, we're going to find out what the limit is with Ty Lue, I think.
Yeah, that's such an unfair circumstance, though. You know, like, because Ty Lue could get fired this year, and just think about the circumstances on that. You lose arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, and you have an owner that is batshit insane.
Yes.
Like, that's a bad circumstance. Here, you have
a
guy...
The problem with this is that with the Clippers, they had a ton of front office turnover. Like, he literally lost the keys to the front office.
Yes.
That's what makes all of this
You're
so
talking
bizarre.
about literally lost the keys.
Yeah. Like,
did he have actual keys and he no longer got them?
He lost,
because that's what literally
but like
means.
Typically guys who end up losing front office control,
extreme power taken away from him, which is that is not a normal circumstance. Usually if you're going, somehow they did not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time those guys just end up leaving, and Doc didn't, which, you know, who knows why.
Because I'm pretty sure he's still getting paid the same amount.
Yeah, that's definitely true. In terms of what is their best lineup?
Beverly, man, that's tricky because Lou Williams is like the only bona fide scorer on this team.
Yeah, I think Lou has to be in that lineup.
But I don't know who's better. I mean, I guess it's Beverly and Lou. I can't believe that I'm leaving Avery Bradley out of their best lineup. But Beverly, Lou, Tobias, Ba Mute, and Harrell.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that I agree with that.
I literally ran through 5 guys in my goddamn head when I was reading that off. Because it might be Mike Scott.
Yeah, it might be Mike Scott. It might be Gortat. It might be Harrell. But like, it's one of those three with those 4 players.
It might be a 3. It might be a Villanova 3 guard with Beverly, Bradley, Williams, and then Harris and Gortat.
Yeah, maybe. Bradley was sneaky really bad last year, though.
No, I know, but
he was hurt.
Avery Bradley.
Yeah, like I want Avery Bradley to be good, but he was really just not great last year.
I know.
Yeah, and with that lineup, 37 in the Western Conference is too high, I think.
Yeah. I just wrote yikes. I don't know. Maybe if they get a competent coach in there this year, they stand a chance.
Yeah, I mean the thing is though, like, okay, if Doc gets fired mid-year, that means that they've been really, really bad. If they
Extremely
don't
good
fire
point.
Doc this year,
because apparently they have to be downright horrific to fire Doc Rivers.
Yeah, and look, like, again, I'm not nearly as low on Doc Rivers as you are. Like, I think
I'm the lowest. There's no one lower than me on this hierarchy.
I think he's a totally reasonable NBA coach, like totally average, reasonable NBA coach. The thing that scares me is the fact that he hasn't typically handled lineup situations like well. But
and they handed him a team that's like, have fun, mix and match.
So I don't really know what to make of that necessarily.
There's no clear-cut best 5. There's no clear-cut best 10.
Yeah, so we'll see. we'll see how this goes.
Maybe depth. Maybe this team, which everybody is somehow just screaming 500. Maybe they end up at 500. Maybe this is the definitive 41-41 team where there is no starting 5 or no clear-cut best 5, and egalitarianism wins out.
That would be funny. Yeah, I'm gonna go under. You're over.
37's kind of low. Let's go over.
Do you want a straight push?
Yeah, I want to probably because there's a couple.
The worst expected value proposition.
Oh my god, yeah, no. If I was ranking bets, this is the one that I would stay away from the absolute most. And there's some of them that I've already said that it's just like, get the hell away from this. Yeah. This one is like, do not touch under any This is radioactive.
I don't know. I don't feel that strongly about it. I don't know that I will make a bet on this one.
Uncle Milos, man. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they got Uncle Milos. I can't dislike them to some point. I have to like them.
The Los Angeles Lakers, 48.5. I am genuinely just not going to read off any of the
we know what's up.
Any of the season numbers from last year because they genuinely do not mean anything. LeBron James is on this roster now. They also
who
bring
else is
in
on this roster?
Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley, Rajon Rondo, Mo Wagner, Isaac Bonga, Svi Mikhailuk. Like this roster is bizarre.
This is the most extremely preposterous roster in the NBA. This is an NBA 2K roster from someone who's never played the game before. I am all the way in on the preposterousness of this Lakers team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And I am all the way in on an under a 48.5.
Honestly, I'm taking over because I am just at the point in my life where I refuse to bet against LeBron James.
Totally agree with that sentiment.
I also will say this. I think there's a reasonable argument to make that LeBron sees what is on this roster and might take kind of a recharge year, realizing I can't compete with the Warriors, I can't compete with the Rockets. I'm just going to take a year and kind of refuel and then get a max guy next year, and then we're going to go to town. But I'm just not betting against LeBron. I'm not betting on this number, but I'm going to say over if you make me pick.
If this team makes the playoffs, they do so as a 7 or an 8 seed.
I mean
that's the most likely scenario.
I think that they can be more than that, but yeah.
No, they could. No, I mean, listen, they have LeBron James. They can do whatever the hell they want in some regards. But there needs to be significant maturation from Lonzo Ball. Brandon Ingram, who was kind of sneaky good last year.
He's great. Good player.
Good player. I don't know if that's him. He's 21, so obviously plenty of upside. But I don't know what that kid's ceiling is, and I don't know if that gets brought out. I don't think that Kyle Kuzma takes another, leap. He was a rookie last year, but no one saw that coming, and he was pretty goddamn good. I don't know if that goes to another level. I like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's very good. I think Josh Hart's a nice role player. Moritz Wagner is an interesting option as a kind of a let's get some points 5 that maybe develops into something more. But Jesus Christ, I mean, you got Rondo, Stevenson, McGee, and Beasley. This is to say combustible is an understatement. Now you're adding in LeBron, who I think passive aggressive is his first language, with English being 2. It's not necessarily. Everyone is going to, this number is artificially high. It's because of LeBron, and that makes all the sense in the world. It's always going to be a little bit higher for the Lakers because of the fan base and the clout that this team has. But what about this team? Honestly, let's just take LeBron at all of his greatness. a guy who doesn't play defense anymore, who won't play defense for this team. Straight up, he's not playing defense for this team. But with all of his greatness, his unquestioned, unbridled greatness, 34-year-old LeBron James, what about this team says it's better than 500?
LeBron James.
Yeah, but how many games did the Cavs win last year?
I think they won like 47, something like that. Did they?
The Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who I guess didn't have the same.
They won 50. I'm sorry.
50. Okay, didn't have the same upside for sure as a team with Ball and Ingram and Kuzma and Hart and I guess Wagner. Certainly without that upside, but that team won 50 games. Okay.
Yeah, this team is better than that team.
Yes, but how much better is the Western Conference than the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, but scheduling doesn't make like a difference of.
It makes some difference.
More than like 4 games. Okay,
well that's a good number right there.
That still gets you down to 46 and 36, though.
I don't. 4 I think is understating it to a certain degree, but
could be this year.
Could be. But last year, nevertheless. Is Luke Walton the right coach for this team? I honestly don't know. That's another factor that has to come into play here.
I will say that I've liked more of what I've seen from Luke than what I've seen of Ty Lue.
I think that's an extremely fair assessment. I'm just saying.
We've seen Luke coach a good team before, too. Like, it's not like we're going in blind here. Like, he coached that Warriors team. Like, look, to an extent, that team runs itself, but to an extent, a team with
almost
LeBron
literally
runs itself.
Right, and that is in some ways. I mean, Luke Walton has now spent a year trying to get, 2 years. I don't know. He was hired 2016, so 2 years trying to install a system, and he's been getting players in. It was a slow cook, right? And then they make this big change in the front office, and they declared we're back into the superstar game. And they went out and got the superstar of all superstars, who commands more power than any person in the NBA, bar none, and is a guy who can kill a coach with one tweet if he wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, he can straight up Thanos snap a coach.
Correct.
He needs.
Luke Walton Luke Walton is a great guy. He's a very amenable guy. He does not come in with a tremendous amount of clout, though.
Sure.
Yeah, he hasn't. Yes, he did that Warriors team. I don't think he's proved shit, honestly.
Probably not. But look, I mean, here's the thing. He's, I think, done a pretty reasonable job with this Lakers team so far.
Totally agree.
Like, this team won 35 games last year. They probably should not have won 35 games last year. Just based off of talent.
I liked their trajectory.
Yeah.
But you start an entire new graph when LeBron James shows up. And I don't know if LeBron is... I have no idea what LeBron is going to be with this team. Is he going to just be another guy and sort of go into a new phase of his career where he is certainly great in all of these things, but he's easier to get along with? Go a little bit more go with the flow. Maybe California mellows him out. Or is he someone who thinks, I'm 34 years old, I have to work I have to work so hard on a daily basis to keep my body in check, to play. I just got done playing massive minutes, and I'm not going to waste any fucking time. I'm not going to wait for this team to get better. It could go the way that I think you suggested earlier, where he just goes, I'm going to be in Malibu. Call me when practice is here, and I'll play 60-something games, and we'll set ourselves up. We'll be respectable enough that we can get that second All-Star.
I think that the setup season. Yeah, I think that the setup season is the most reasonable narrative as to why this team would not win 48-plus games.
So then you pound the under. You pound it.
Again, it's LeBron. I'm just refusing to bet against LeBron. I am at the stage in my life where I am not doing it. It is. I will not bet on this over.
Well, let me put it to you this way: LeBron has been to 8 finals in a row, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's not going to the finals this year.
Yes, in all likelihood, yes.
We're betting against LeBron in that realm to do something that he hasn't done in 8 damn years. That he's not going to make it 9. That he's not going to go for a decade. So just take another logical step with me, Sam.
I'm not taking that next step because 48 regular season games is very different than not making the finals.
Okay, because I mean, ultimately,
that's a step I'm not willing to go far.
Are you willing to tell me that the Los Angeles Lakers are going to improve by, in this case, 14 wins, and that they are going to be within, I said the Warriors are going to win 55, that they're going to be within 5 or 6 games of the Golden State Warriors in the final standings?
I said the Warriors would win 60, and I'm saying that the Lakers win like 50, so I'm going to say 10, or within 10.
No, I'm
very
under.
possible.
I'm under, and I pounded under. I'm not saying that in any way that anything you're saying is incorrect or wrong or infeasible or anything like that. I'm just saying pound the under because I don't get this team right now. This is 2 different timelines colliding, and it's a strange ass brew. And I don't think LeBron at age 34 is going to will this team to the precipice of greatness the way he has so many times in his career. I think that's over. The fact that he's here now signals a new chapter, and that new chapter is I'm not going to put you all on my back anymore. We'll figure it out. It will get good. It will take a year. It will take 2. But I'm not going to bust my balls just for what?
I don't know. He's done it every year of his career. And
he's not winning a championship this year. Every year before that, he could say, I can will this team
Could he say
to
that
the
last
NBA.
year?
He said that he fucking did it.
No,
he
but
willed his team to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, but he couldn't win a championship last year. Like, there was no circumstance where that Cavs team was winning a title.
All you are, and this is a thing that the Cavaliers know very well, and they believe this to their core, all you are is 1 injury away. Get there and anything can happen. Now,
right,
that's not to say it's probable.
Isn't that the same as... I think that when you're talking about an elite athlete...
We're taking into an entire fucking conference now.
But when you're talking about like such a crazy elite athlete like LeBron, I think that they always go in with that mentality. They're always going to go in assuming that, if the thing goes right for us, we can...
Yes, and with those Cavs team, a lot of things had to go right with those latter Cavs teams into the finals. But like this is a team, the Cavs, when they had Kyrie, they beat the Warriors. They did that. So there's an anything is possible aura. Yes, LeBron goes in with best intentions. I don't think he goes in with the intentions of we're winning a championship this year. And just that switch.
Maybe.
And just the fact that it's so improbable that he'll even get to the finals that it's not worth tying yourself to that goal. Just that is enough to coast through an entire season, because we saw how much he coasted when he knew he had to turn it on for the playoffs.
Look, again, I totally understand what you're saying. I think it's a totally reasonable narrative. I just want to be heard. I think it's a totally reasonable narrative to say LeBron...
I'm sweating over here.
To say that, like, LeBron just takes this year, he recharges a little bit.
You were the one who presented that theory. I love it.
I think it's a totally reasonable theory.
How can you present that theory and take the over?
You have
cognitive dissonance.
I am personally just not betting against LeBron.
Don't bet.
A fact.
There's the answer. Don't bet.
Yes, that is. I'm not betting. If you had to rank these players.
Rank them, okay. In what sense?
Lance Stevenson, JaVale McGee, Michael Beasley, Rajon Rondo.
Rondo can provide something for this team. I'd probably rank him 1.
I agree.
I would have Beasley 2.
I agree with that. Beasley was awesome last year. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, there was something going on there. That was a thing. Listen, JaVale is not a bad option at center. You just have to know how to use him, and I think Luke Walton is fully aware of how to use him.
Real quick, I just want to run down Michael Beasley's numbers.
Yeah.
Playing for the Knicks last year. 13.2 points, 5.6 rebounds, 50.7% from the field, 39.5% from 3, 78% from the line. That is good for a true shooting percentage of 55.6 because he takes a ton of those garbage ass mid-range jumpers. But
that's him.
Was actually really good last year.
Listen,
really good.
There's also something about I don't know why LeBron, and it's LeBron's call. They don't. I don't actually know. I mean, do they run these signings by him? Because
they have to, I think.
They have to, but then there's some argument that, he didn't know. But, he's getting it from both sides this year, right? If he's the epicenter of this team, because of course he is, he has to deal with both inexperience and molding these young players into champions and, high-caliber men and all that stuff. He's just got... He's got youth on one end and then this veteran preposterousness on the other end. And it's God damn, this is a madhouse of a team.
Here's what I want by the end of the year. I want Rajon Rondo player coach by the end of the year.
This is. I'm glad that the world is finally figuring out that Rajon Rondo is a basketball genius, and that.
Oh yeah, like.
No, I know you know.
No,
he's
going to be
anyone who doesn't know, like.
Yeah, he's going to be an NBA head coach.
He's the smartest player in the NBA.
Yeah, like he is no question going to be an NBA head coach one day.
Rajon Rondo has a championship. He has made a lot of money. He has been at times one of the best players in the NBA. He is no longer anymore. His basketball intellect far exceeds his physical abilities, and he was pretty damn physically good for a long time.
Yeah,
smartest guy in the NBA, but that intellect cuts both ways. I ultimately think it will be used as a positive. I think he's kind of figured out how to do that now that his physical abilities are diminishing. He knows
one thing
the limitations and such.
Yeah, one thing that a lot of people have questioned is like the Rajon Rondo Lonzo Ball fit. Like you have 2 point guards that really like don't have any shooting ability. They don't want to drive to the basket because they can't shoot free throws. Right. I understand that. I actually do think that if you expect regression from Lonzo Ball as a shooter at all, there's like a world where those two can play together, because Lonzo really is awesome at like head manning the ball, and
for sure
he is most successful often with another point guard on the floor. We saw that at UCLA with Aaron Holiday. Rajon Rondo likes to pound the ball. Lonzo Ball likes to whip the ball around and not hold on to the ball for a long time. I do think that you, in a way, kind of lose the marginal advantage of having Lonzo Ball by pairing him with a guy like Rajon Rondo who pounds the ball. But I can see a world where it works.
I kind of liked Rondo. I thought Rondo kind of... He still does it, don't get me wrong. But there was a bit of evolution with Alvin Gentry last year in New Orleans.
He's gotten better. He has.
He's gotten better at it. Ultimately, I love to have, the number one thing that I want on the court when I'm putting together any lineup is vision, right? Like there's a lot of things that you want, but I want a bunch of guys who see the court really well. And with Lonzo Ball, Rajon Rondo, and LeBron James, that's one hell of a threesome right there.
Brandon Ingram can really pass too.
Right. So there's a lot of potential here. I do not see it coming together in year one. In fact, I think it's going to look really strange and ugly at times. Maybe there's some spikes. I think that, they're going to have some really interesting games for sure. But man, it's just such a peculiar roster, and LeBron's circumstances are downright peculiar above all that. So I'm going to bet against him. I'm going to play the under, because not only do I not see this team, being much better than 500, but I know that this line is artificially inflated because of the Lakers.
So here's another question. Do you think that there's anything to the Lakers needing to prove to other free agents that they are worth going to?
Yeah, but that's small shit.
But
right?
Does it matter, though, because they know LeBron is LeBron?
It matters, but it doesn't matter. I don't think the wins and losses are the metric by which that will be judged. I think that they're going to look to see if the guys that LeBron has around him, the young guys specifically, are competent, and that those are the guys that had the ability to elevate their game. Because any guy who comes in and plays with LeBron James, he's going to be a finished product. So he's going to want the potential of more than just LeBron, who, let's be honest, at some point has to start going down the downslope.
Yeah.
They're going to want to see, if it's a Jimmy Butler, if it's an Anthony Davis, whatever, they're going to want to see that the young guys who are on, reasonable contracts that are going to be able to get to that championship level, that they have that ability if you have the two key guys around them. I don't think that's going to be a very difficult sell. I think LeBron will bring out the best. He brings out the best in damn near any player if he's on the court, and especially in, I think, more of a servant role this year, because I don't think he has much to prove. I think that the biggest thing he has to prove is that these other guys are good. That's his number one priority, I would argue. And so he's going to make them look really damn good. And that a lot of people knock him for being unselfish, but if he doesn't think that he can win a championship, he gets to tap into what I think might be his greatest strength, which is his unselfishness, and highlight that, and therefore highlight other players. How that comes together, I don't know. I don't think it will happen immediately for certain. But if your only goal is to attract another free agent, LeBron James is going to have no problem doing that whatsoever. Yeah. And I don't think that that necessarily is a win-loss argument at all. If this team wins 35 games next year again, but LeBron, makes all these guys look good, and you come out of the season with, holy shit, even if they don't get another one, you have to like where they are next year. If they get on a little roll, if they show a little momentum, if it all comes together at some point for them, and you see what kind of a supernova this can be, that's all you need. And win losses, that's just not how you determine that kind of crap, because there's a lot of teams that don't have a positive trajectory that will win 45 games this year. Yeah. You can win games and not be a good team. This is about the long con for LeBron James. He signed a 4-year deal, and year one, if he honestly doesn't believe he can win a championship, and looking at this roster, there's no logical reason for him to think he can win a championship outside of his own damn power reaching new levels. What's he going to do? Yeah,
but still, LeBron taking a step back makes him a top 6 player in the league versus a top 1 player in the league. And having a top 6 player in the league, gets you to 45 wins basically by default.
I just think that we're going to see such a different LeBron James this year. And in no way will it diminish his greatness. I just think it's going to be a different style. It's going to be a complete departure. It's like when Kanye just does a whole new genre from whatever he was doing before. He is a player who's evolving. The fact that he is here shows a very clear departure from LeBron 3.0 or whatever we wanted to call it. This is LeBron 4.0. I don't know what it is yet, but my inclination is that it is more of a pivot man, someone who can absolutely take control whenever he wants, but not someone who needs the force of ego to bear out every game. And I'm in for it, but this is not a short-term winning strategy, to be fair.
Okay, I'm going over because I refuse to bet against LeBron. You're going under. Memphis Grizzlies, 32.5 is the number. They won 22 games last season. Offensive rating 27th, defensive rating 26th, expected win-loss 25. They only got 12 games from Mike Conley. It was just a massive struggle. They had 24 guys play games for them last year. They had 24 guys play at least 3 games for them last year, which is just an absolute nightmare. They bring in Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson, Garrett Temple, Omri Caspi, and Shelvin Mack. So, they actually have brought in a full bench worth of rotation players.
Right.
Plus, they get Mike Conley back, obviously, for those 70 games. You know what? I am going significantly over here.
Same. I have a hard over. This might be my hardest over.
For pause.
A lot of terrible puns on this show.
What is going on here?
It's no bueno.
Mike Conley, over the course of his career, he's got this reputation for missing games, obviously. Over the last 10 years that he's been in the NBA, he has played at least 70 games in 6 of them. He's played at least 50 games in 9 of them. Last year was the only year where he had such a significant injury that he had to miss large swaths of the year.
Yeah.
Obviously they're going to lose Tyreek Evans, who was really good for them.
He was really good
for the first half of the year. He missed the last 30 games of the year because they just held him out. But really, other than that, you're not talking about a ton of crazy losses. They traded James Ennis at the deadline.
James Ennis is a good player, but there wasn't. I don't think there was a full-time spot for him.
Yeah,
to be honest.
So
Mario Chalmers is gone. But
what this ultimately,
he played 21 minits for this team last year. I mean, he was their main starting guy in some regards.
It's bizarre. It was bizarre team last year.
Right. You just have to throw last year out.
Yeah. You're betting on Mike Conley and Marc Gasol staying healthy if you're betting on this.
Which, by the way, they're 31 and 34. So there's extreme risk in that.
There is definitely risk. I'm just going to do it and pray. That those guys stay healthy. Because I think if they do stay healthy, this team fights for the 8 seed.
Agreed.
I think that they are probably 11 games better than their over-under if both of those guys play 70 games.
Which, by the way, is 11 games better. Their over-under is 11 games better than they were last year. There's a lot to like about this team. Let's just go over the bench.
They quit last year.
And why wouldn't they? I mean, it behooved them. And they ended up with Jaren Jackson, who I think is going to make an immediate impact for this team. That worked out. Tanking works sometimes. In this case, they didn't get the number 1 pick or anything, but damn if Jaren Jackson isn't going to be a player in the NBA. I'm just betting on that full stop. Another guy that they get back, and now the Chandler Parsons is going to be on this team. I don't know how long. He might only last a week, but Chandler Parsons is a guy off the bench. He doesn't have to be the guy off the bench. But
no, don't do this to yourself.
I'm just telling you. What if Chandler Parsons turns into anything? That's found money at this point. I know he makes $24 million, but like they've gotten nothing from him since he's been there.
I love that signing so much too.
Same. But like you can't predict some of this crap. But it's been 2 years. Like it might happen. He might be able to give you, something off the bench and be a positive force on this team. And they got slow-mo. I think JaMychal Green is like wickedly underrated. Dylan Brooks showed a lot last year.
Dylan Brooks played, I think, the most minutes of any rookie last year.
Yeah, it was 28.7 minutes per game last year, all 82 games, and he played good. He played well. There's a lot of reasons to buy Dylan Brooks stock. He's not going to be an all-star, an all-pro, or anything, but damn if he won't be a solid role player on what can be a pretty good team. Garrett Temple's a good player.
Yeah,
he's a good player. Omri Caspi is not a good player, and that was a weird signing. But you get some misses. Wayne Selden. Okay, he went to Kansas, so I can't say nice things about him, but here we are. I like Rab a lot.
I will say that I think Wayne Selden is like straight up an NBA player.
I agree with that.
Like I think he is a rotation NBA player.
Be interesting to see what Marshawn Brooks has for him this year.
That worked well for a few games last year. I think he averaged like 20 points a game in the 7 games he played.
7 games, 27 minutes. It was hey, they have a lot of competent basketball players on this team, and I haven't mentioned Andrew Harrison yet. Who you're looking for a guy who could maybe win like most improved player this year?
Oh, that's aggressive.
I know.
That is so aggressive.
I know. It's another one of those, like, if you can get him at plus 2,000, take it. I like Andrew Harrison.
I think he's an NBA player. I don't think he's a starter. I'll just say that.
I think Andrew Harrison has a chance to do something pretty damn good. I've liked Andrew Harrison since he came out. So
yeah, I mean,
I know, but
it's aggressive.
Listen. If I'm here for nothing, it's aggressive takes.
I'm here for aggressive takes.
I think Andrew Harrison has a chance to make a nice jump this year. I think that having competence around him,
it could help.
It could spark something, because Lord knows the kid's got the talent. Not again to be this top flight guy, but damned if he won't be able to find a nice solid NBA role surrounded by good players. And there's just a lot of good players on this team. I don't know if JB Pickerstaff is necessarily the best guy for the job, JB interim staff, but fuck, man, like this is an obvious over to me. It's just so obvious. The only way it doesn't work out is injury, and hell, if you can't bet, you can't bet as if someone's gonna get injured. You just can't do it.
Yeah, I think you have to account for it, but it's hard to just like straight up assume it as well.
I totally agree with you on that this team is going to be around 500, and that's just such a massive over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I will bet on this over. Yeah, Mike Conley is just a stud, and I think people have kind of forgotten a little bit how absolutely incredible he is. Even though he is 31 years old, like he is just an absolute monster on the floor.
He got a whole year off last year.
Yeah, he got a whole year off. Like that actually could really help. Yeah. All right, that's 7 teams. Let's call it here.
Okay.
We've been going for 2 hours.
Sorry.
This has been.
I had to get all of those Lakers thoughts out.
This has been an aggressively long podcast. If any of you guys listened to this,
to be fair, that is as good. We got the Warriors in there. We got the Rockets. We had me going on for 15 minutes about why I don't understand Doc Rivers, and we had LeBron James, as well as the team that I think we're both most bullish on.
Yeah,
like this was the wheelhouse.
This was a wheelhouse episode, and there
of the 4 episodes, this is the strongest for sure. It's almost as strong as Andrew Harrison, breakout player of the year.
Oh, and you know what? The next episode, there are some fun teams. There's some really fun teams there. Do you have any Raiders takes you want to get off before we get out of here? Like, no one is listening still, so we're okay. You're in a safe space here.
find this. Derek Carr will never, ever, ever get back to 2016. I'm on the record. It's never happening. It's never happening. He's too skittish in the pocket. He's afraid of the pass rush, and John Gruden is going to bench him this year, and he is not going to go to Las Vegas with the Las Vegas Raiders or whatever the hell they are now. This vagabond team that plays in my backyard.
Because what?
He's not making it with them.
2016 was the year that they started like 12-3 or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was the year that he had 7 fourth quarter comebacks because that shit's sustainable.
Yeah.
They played a straight spread offense, just straight collegiate spread. And like I thought Gruden had a great game plan on Monday, honestly. And Derek Carr was executing it pretty damn well because it's kind of a dink and dunk offense. And then you take your shots down the field. Second half, Rams pass rush actually started to get through on an offensive line that started to break down, and Derek just turned right back into chicken shit.
Yeah, the problem with evaluating Derek Carr in general right now is, the offensive line is a disaster.
It's not that bad.
It's pretty bad right now.
It's not good. I know. Listen, I'm leading that bandwagon. It's to the point now, though, that I feel like I've led the bandwagon about this offensive line is not going to be good so much. A lot of people have caught on, I guess, independent of my leading it or not. Maybe it's a different bandwagon of identical thought. That's more likely. That now it's like, whoa, it's not like it's the worst in the league. It's just not a top 10 offensive line anymore, which it was for years and years and years. You can't go from a power blocking scheme with the heaviest offensive line in football and then just be like, by the way, we're zone blocking everything and you all need to lose 30 pounds. And by the way, our left tackle's now our right tackle. We got a rookie at left tackle who has to figure out the game because, frankly, he wasn't taught it very well in either high school or college.
Why don't they just play Kalichi Osemele at left tackle?
Because they just drafted this Miller kid. Every move that they make is based on the Las Vegas Raiders. Like, John Gruden has a 10-year contract. He's not going to sabotage himself long-term for the sake of these 2 years in Oakland, which is why he trades Khalil Mack, because if you get Khalil Mack, now you're locked in to whatever the potential of a Khalil Mack, Derek Carr team was for 3-4 years. And that's a, 7, 8, 9 win team, maybe? Maybe. Now you get rid of Mack. Okay, now you're locking in like 5 or 6 wins this year, whatever Carr will give you, and your defense is going to suck. But you have 4 first-round picks over the next 2 drafts, which, frankly, you're probably going to have to use 2 of them to trade up and get a quarterback if you're not already in position to get them with your shitty record. But he has now draft capital to build a team in his Gruden grinder ways for Las Vegas, which at least in theory for him has a chance to win the Super Bowl, even though we all know that it was probably never going to get any better than it was when you had Khalil Mack and Derek Carr, which we all agreed was pretty average, all things considered. That's where this team is. I can't wait for him to leave.
John Gruden, is he as ridiculous to cover as I expect he is?
John Gruden says a lot of stuff, and very little of it is true. But goddamn, does that man have charisma?
I am here for all of like everything that John Gruden does. Like, I just enjoy it.
I mean, it's
he's the best like NFL meme generator in the world.
It's really been great. Don't get me wrong, but kind of exhausting. Like, at some point, there's this alternate universe that is being presented in the week, and then on Sundays it's like, hey, let's all show up in reality and hope that shit carried over.
It probably did not carry over.
Guess what? It didn't. So it's maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Derek Carr shows me. I would love for Derek Carr to show me something that he's not just totally chicken shit in the pocket, because when he is on, you're talking about incredible talent. Arguably generational arm talent and mobility. And if that could click, if he got his head straight, man, that'd be something. It'd be really, really fun to watch, but I'm not betting on it.
The thing that they did super well in the first half that they did a little bit less of in the second half, which I thought was strange, was they ran up-tempo a lot. It seemed like they scripted up-tempo early and then went away from it in the second half, and I didn't really understand that because that's how you stop the rush.
Yeah, so there was an adjustment by the Rams there. So the Rams were playing pretty base 4-3 defense, and so the entire game plan for the Raiders was attack the Rams' linebackers, which are not good. They're just straight up not good in coverage or really in the run fit game, though they're better in the run fit. So that up tempo maintained the base alignment, and the notion was we're going to wear them out early, and then we're going to hit them over the top later. And frankly, that was executed. Now, the offensive line started to fall apart a little bit because Aaron Donald figured out, like, oh, yeah, I remember how to play football, and was just incredible from, like, the second quarter on. Like, 3 minutes left in the first quarter, he had a hit on Carr, kind of went away for a while. I thought the Raiders offensive line was doing a really good job with both him and Sue, with Brockers on the outside. Like, they were actually holding up really damn well. It was a hell of a battle down there in the trenches. But then Donald started taking over in the second quarter, and the pocket started to break down a little bit faster, and Carr started to get a little bit more rushed. And so then it wasn't so much we're just going to wear you out through tempo, because now you didn't get tempo because the offensive line breaks down. You can't play tempo if you have an offensive line that can't hold, because now they're tired, and that means your quarterback's going to die. And two, now the short passes to the running back and Jared Cook, those aren't tactical. Those are bailout. Those are, I have to get rid of the ball fast because I'm going to die. And then you come into the second half, and the Rams started to go more to the base nickel and dime. And now you can't run the up-tempo because you don't have those mismatches. Now you only have that halfback screen where essentially they're kind of dropping into a quasi-zone. And Carr had open receivers downfield. The plan of nickel and diming and then tiring them out and then hitting them deep was working. It just, he could not hold on. He after 2 seconds, he's like, I still have the ball. I'm going to die. I got to get rid of it. So you either throw it to a running back. Sometimes he'd be able to hit Cook over a soft zone. Or in one case, he just threw it away inside the pocket, which, like, I've never seen anything like that. It was a clean pocket, and he just threw it away. And Amari Cooper was wide open by 5 yards down the field. And everyone's like, oh, Amari Cooper needs to be better. Amari Cooper was really good in that game. I watched the All-22. He was good. He had separation. Derek Carr couldn't find him because Derek Carr refused the ball look more than 10 yards downfield because he can't handle the pressure. He had a conversation with his brother David, who was destroyed by his offensive line when he was the number one pick for the Houston Texans. I think he was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL for a period of time. Just like totally
4 years in a row, yeah.
Right, just totally. I mean, like setting records sacked. It totally broke David when Derek got injured and he broke his leg at the end of the 2016 season. Him and his brother got closer, and I don't think it was explicitly stated, but there was a certain amount of David Carr's skittishness that was transferred into his brother. It just honestly, it was just like something that was said flipped a switch for Derek Carr and not for the better. He lost his ability to be fearless, and that is the number one thing you need in the game of football more than anything else. You need to be a fucking crazy person because that's the only way you can survive on the field with guys going that fast with that much viciousness.
Yeah, I mean, with Derek Carr, the problem is that I think I saw the number was he threw 6 passes beyond 8 yards.
8 yards, yeah.
In 40 attempts. That's just not enough. Like, you got to be able to test the defense long.
And the opportunities were there. It just takes a patient quarterback, and
look,
they have
like,
the opposite of that.
I get it with the West Coast offense. You're obviously going to be, dinking and dumping and playing for these 6-yard completions pretty regularly, but it just doesn't. That's not enough. You still have to be able to test the defense down the field.
I thought that the scheme was perfect in which to do that. Honestly, I mean, just watching it back too, it was what I saw the opening night, which is it's there. He just doesn't. He neither sees it nor wants to take it, and he cracked. I don't. It's just one of those things where you get the fear. You feel mortality, and that's a fight or flight moment, and it's always flight for Derek Carr. Always. Now, and everyone goes, well, he's this great clutch quarterback. That is correct. He is a very good quarterback in the clutch, because in the clutch, you're running a 4-minute or a 2-minute offense, and those are spread, easy read concepts. You have to pass the ball. It is going back to when he was at Fresno State, and he could air raid it out. And I thought John Gruden did a great job of meshing some of those concepts, and there were a lot of 4 and 5 wide looks, single back, stuff like that. A lot of spread concepts, which they ran a lot in 2016 under Musgraves, and they specifically, they went full bore on it in 4-minute offense, 2-minute offense, with John Gruden's West Coast looks, where he had the heavy 22 personnel and things like that. I thought that was a perfect marriage. A lot of credit to John Gruden. That was a great playbook and a great game plan. But when your quarterback doesn't show the ability to handle basic timing on the West Coast stuff, and when you do spread it out, and he if you slow it down, it doesn't matter if you spread it out. If you speed it up and spread it out, he stands a chance. But it's not an issue of arm talent. It's not an issue of scheme. frankly, I don't think it's an issue of talent around him at all either. I thought the offensive line, while it did break down, they did really damn well against the best defensive line in football, almost inarguably, specifically the interior defensive line. So who's it on? It's on the quarterback. He didn't execute. John Gruden is the last guy in the world that you don't want to execute the game plan with, because if there's one thing he's proven in his career, and I know it's been 9 years since he was last on the sidelines, but that dude eats quarterbacks alive, and he does not take to sabotaging his game plan. His game plan is perfect. In this case, he might be right, but if you fuck that up for him, he'll find a new person who will at least execute it. And there was nothing that Derek Carr did. Honestly, there's nothing he did on Monday, and there's really nothing he did last year that a backup quarterback couldn't do. And if this shit continues week 2, week 3, week 4, I don't think we get to week 5. The Raiders and the 49ers play on Thursday night at the beginning of November, I think. I'd be willing to bet right now that Derek Carr does not start that game.
That is aggressive, and I'm here for that take.
This has been the number one thing that I said going into this season was if we're going to find out one way or another if Derek Carr's got it, because John Gruden and Derek Carr should not make sense. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work because the things that Gruden values more than anything else, Derek Carr has not shown on a football field. I think he has the ability to do it. He hasn't shown it, or at least consistently shown it. And that conflict, that core conflict, the reason I was pessimistic about this union literally bore out in the second half of game 1. It could not have been better for a columnist.
Dieter, I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you for the strong takes.
You should be. If there's one thing I'm here for.
Tell the people where they can find your strong takes on the internet and in paper, I believe, as well.
At this point, I'm not sure if I'm employed by anyone. San Jose Mercury News, East Bay Times, on Twitter, at D. Kurtenbach. I just called for the San Francisco Giants to fire their manager, so, have at that.
You're just going all out.
I'm not. I'm glad that we had this, because honestly, I've been looking for a little bit of fire lately. I felt a little dull. The night's been a little bit dull. I needed the right probing, and God damn it.
Do you have any strong Henry Cavill takes? Like,
what's going on with Henry Cavill?
He is no longer going to be playing Superman.
Oh, well, I hadn't seen any of the Superman movies before that, so no sweat off my back.
It's a terrible decision. Terrible decision.
You liked? I heard Justice League sucks. So why would anything before it be good?
It wasn't his fault that Justice League sucked. He's a very good Superman.
I'll tell you this: I loved him in the latest Mission Impossible.
He was awesome in the latest Mission Impossible.
That was so good, awesome movie.
It was an awesome movie, and he's probably the second best villain in a Mission Impossible movie that I've seen. Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third one is by far the best.
Yeah, but that goes without saying.
Yeah, Henry Cavill in this one was awesome. I thought he was better than the nameless Sean Harris guy that Sean Harris plays. Right.
I agree. I need to watch all of those again, because I really enjoy every time I go and see them. I kind of forget the backstory and all that because they're kind of spread out pretty far. But man, the last two have just been absolute dynamite. Yeah. And especially considering how shitty James Bond has gotten. The last one was Skyfall. And I'm like, I don't remember any of this backstory. And the entire movie is about tying up loose ends that I don't remember. Whereas the Mission Impossible one's it's a hint of backstory. You kind of know what's going on, but they explain it maybe a little bit too much for people who actually remember. But
Spectre was the most recent.
Was that it? Yeah. Whatever it was, where it's Christoph Waltz. I'm, it's all been building up to this, and now it's final. And I'm like, so what was the build up though? Can you explain what's going on here? Because I honestly don't remember, and I didn't read Wikipedia before I showed up. I walked out of it, and I'm like, it didn't have enough action. I don't remember any of the backstory. I did not enjoy myself. Whereas at least, and I'll say this, at least with the Mission Impossibles, I think they understood what John Wick was able to do for the genre. And they realized that there was a proper quotient, and it's higher than most other action movies had been giving, right? It was 40% action.
Yeah,
you need 3 massive fight scenes or whatever. Give the people the concentrate, and then you can kind of do whatever the hell you want on the back end. You don't need this big, elaborate... It doesn't need to be a mental thriller. It's an action movie. If you can get a little bit of mental thriller, good, but
Yeah, like Mission Impossible Fallout was like if you combined a Fast and Furious and John Wick movie. Like
sign me up.
Yeah, the Fast and Furious movies are amazing, and John Wick is amazing. But they're amazing for very, very different reasons.
Right.
Mission
There's
Impossible.
an uncanniness aspect to stuff in there too, where that's a very weird. We won't get into it, but there's a commentary on modern media to be made from those things. Fascinating.
Mission Impossible though was the best way to like combine those two movies. It was basically just totally like the Mission Impossible 1 was like this smart, like sleek thriller.
And it was good, don't get me wrong.
Not like a crazy amount of action. And then like Mission Impossible
1997?
6 now. Yeah, like Mission Impossible 6 is basically just like a crazy action series, and it's awesome.
And it had as good of a car chase as I can remember in any movie. I know the French Connection is held up as the one. Obviously, it's been supplanted several times since, probably by the Fast and the Furious movies in general. But you know, I'm not kind of one of those guys who rides hard for Fast and Furious. Like, I like them. I'm not like waiting in line or anything like that. I don't think I've seen one in theaters in a while. But like, I understand their role, and they are well done for what they are. But man, that car chase scene, I'm trying to remember if there's been a better one in a non-Fast and Furious movie in recent memory, and I'm having a hard time coming up with that.
Man, Mission Impossible still in theaters. I might go see it at some point.
It's good.
Again,
it's good. It's still in theaters. I mean, anyone listening to this, if this is even going to make it, who the hell knows?
Just go see it.
Just go see it, man. You got to see it on the big screen. If you can get it in IMAX or some 270 or whatever, like, or what, 70 millimeter, like that's the way to do it. You gotta live it up.
This has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. I think I'll keep most of this in. You guys just want to listen to us bullshit.
I think it's compelling content, but
it's fine.
Then again, most people love the smell of their own farts.
The Henry Cavill frustration for me is that the problem with the Superman and the DC universe in general is that the writing and the editing and the direction have been the problems, not the stars.
Those things.
Like Wonder Woman was really good, and I'm actually interested in Aquaman, but I'm not a Zack Snyder guy. So that's probably where the frustration comes in.
I wish I could do something like 300 and then just ride those coattails forever and just somehow keep getting away with it. Like, I need to do something like that, because that just sounds like the way to live.
You can find this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Android, Apple Podcasts.
300 wasn't even that good.
Whatever your listening device is, I agree with you that 300 was not that good. There were like 300 words stated in the entire movie.
Well, that's fine. I mean, we don't need it, but it's just like...
Give me 300 words in a 5-minute stretch of Gilmore Girls over the 300 words stated in the 90 minutes that is 300.
It's just pretentious. It's just a pretentious movie.
Yeah. We'll be back later next week with the conclusion of this series on over-unders with Dieter, and who knows, maybe we'll get more hot movie takes. I'm probably going to go see Searching this weekend. I'll probably go see... a couple other movies this weekend because I've been gone and we didn't go see any movies. I'm in Denver.
I might go see a movie too. That's a good idea.
There it is. We'll have movie time next podcast.
Yay, popcorn!
Thanks all for listening. I really appreciate it. Thanks all.
Bye everybody.
We'll talk soon. Bye.